What if Deku could literally punch reality until it broke? Not some weak-ass percentage bullshit. I'm talking full apocalypse mode from day one. Forget All Might's power. Forget One for All. This Izuku was born with the ability to end the world, and everyone knew it. Strap in, because this isn't your mama's My Hero Academia.
Welcome, legends, to Chronos Recom. I wrote this story myself, so if you have any suggestions or what-ifs you want to see, drop it in the comments below. Also, just wanted to let you know I've got a Patreon set up now for anyone who wants to support the channel directly. You can get early access to stories, submit direct fan requests, and get exclusive content. It's totally optional, but if you want to help keep these stories coming, check it out. Links in the description. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and hit that bell so you never miss an upload. Let's dive into this story.
The hospital shook, not from an earthquake, not from a villain attack. From the newborn child in room 304, whose first cry had cracked 3 windows and sent ripples through the floor tiles like someone had thrown a boulder into still water. The doctor stumbled backward, catching himself against the wall. Izuku Midoriya stared at her son with wide, terrified eyes as the infant's tiny fists clenched and unclenched, each movement accompanied by a faint distortion in the air around them, like reality itself was bending. What is his quirk? Izuku whispered. The doctor approached cautiously, his quirk analysis equipment already whirring. He placed sensors near the baby's hands, and the readings immediately spiked into dangerous territory. He pulled back, face pale. Mrs. Midoriya, he said slowly, your son's quirk is classified as mutation emitter hybrid. Preliminary designation, tremor. His body is generating vibrations at frequencies that can propagate through any medium, air, water, solid matter. The infrastructure of this hospital could collapse if he has another outburst. Izuku pulled her baby close despite the danger, maternal instinct overriding fear. Will he be okay? The doctor didn't answer immediately. He was staring at the readings, at the impossible numbers that suggested this child, this hours-old infant, possessed destructive potential that rivaled natural disasters. He'll need to learn control, the doctor finally said, quickly. 14 years later, Izuku Midoriya stood nearly 7 feet tall. His body had grown to accommodate the devastating forces his quirk generated. Dense muscle wrapped around reinforced bones, his frame massive and powerful in ways that made adults step aside when he walked past. His green hair was wilder, longer, swept back from a face that had lost all traces of childhood softness. He wore a modified middle school uniform, the only one that fit his enormous frame, and carried a steel bisento over his shoulder like it weighed nothing. The weapon was 6 feet of folded steel ending in a curved blade, custom forged to withstand the vibrations he channeled through it. Other students gave him a wide berth in the hallways. Not from fear, well, not entirely from fear. Izuku Midoriya had never hurt anyone who didn't deserve it, but his presence alone was overwhelming, like standing too close to a sleeping titan. Bakugo Katsuki hated him. Think you're so special, don't you? Bakugo snarled during lunch break, palms crackling with small explosions. Just because you're big doesn't mean you're strong. Izuku didn't even turn around. He continued eating his lunch, triple portions necessary to fuel his enormous body, while Bakugo's lackeys shifted nervously behind their leader. Go away, Bakugo, Izuku said calmly. I'm eating. Don't ignore me. Bakugo launched himself forward, palm extended for a point-blank explosion. Izuku moved. One massive hand shot out, catching Bakugo's wrist before the explosion could detonate. The size difference was startling. Izuku's hand completely engulfed Bakugo's forearm. I said. Izuku repeated, his voice dropping to something deep and dangerous. Go away. He released Bakugo's wrist. The blonde stumbled backward, rage and humiliation warring on his face. For a moment, it looked like he might attack again. Then he noticed the lunch tray. The steel tray, which now had a perfect handprint impression pressed into it. The metal warped and cracked from where Izuku had been gripping it. Bakugo's explosions died. He stepped back. Whatever. You're not worth my time. He stormed off, his lackeys scrambling to follow. Izuku returned to his lunch. Around him, other students whispered. Did you see how easily he stopped Bakugo? I heard he destroyed an entire city block during quirk training when he was 10. My dad's a hero. He says the Hero Commission has Midoriya flagged as a potential S-class threat. S-class? Isn't that what they use for natural disasters? Izuku heard it all. He'd been hearing it his entire life. The fear, the awe, the speculation about what would happen if he ever truly lost control. He'd learned to live with it. Because his mother had taught him something crucial, something that shaped every decision he made. You have the power to destroy the world, Izuku, so you must have an even greater will to protect it. The bell rang. Izuku stood, his bicento scraping against the floor as he lifted it. Time for the afternoon session, career counseling. He already knew what he'd say. The career counselor was a nervous man named Watanabe who kept a respectful distance from Izuku's desk. So, Midoriya, he said, consulting his notes with shaking hands, you've indicated you want to apply to UA High School's Hero course. That's right, Izuku confirmed. The entrance exam is notoriously difficult, I know. And with your quirk's destructive potential, you'll need to demonstrate exceptional control. I have control. Izuku's voice was firm but not hostile. He reached out and tapped the desk with one finger. A tiny vibration rippled outward, making Watanabe's coffee cup shake but not spill. I've had control since I was 6. My mother made sure of it. Watanabe swallowed hard. Of course. I didn't mean to imply... your record shows no instances of collateral damage or civilian casualties during any training exercises. That's actually remarkable given your power level. Because I'm not a monster, Izuku said quietly, I'm going to be a hero. Heroes protect people. That's all I've ever wanted to do. The sincerity in his voice made Watanabe pause. Behind the massive frame and the weapon and the reputation, there was just a 15-year-old boy who wanted to help people. Then I wish you the best of luck, Midoriya. UA would be fortunate to have you. Izuku nodded and stood, ducking slightly to avoid hitting his head on the doorframe. As he left, he passed Bakugo's desk. The blonde was glaring at him with unconcealed hatred. UA, huh? Bakugo muttered. Don't get cocky. You're not the only strong one applying. Never said I was, Izuku replied evenly. But I will pass. I have to. Why? Bakugo demanded. Why do you even want to be a hero? Someone like you could do whatever the hell you wanted. Make millions as a villain. Rule this whole damn city. Izuku looked at him with something like pity. Because that's exactly why I need to be a hero. Someone with my power can't afford to be anything else. He walked away, leaving Bakugo seething in his wake. 2 months before the UA entrance exam, Izuku encountered his first real villain. He was walking home through the shopping district, bicento resting on his shoulder when he heard the screaming. Civilians were running in panic, fleeing from a massive creature made of living sludge that had engulfed a middle school student. Izuku's eyes widened. The student trapped inside was struggling, suffocating, drowning in sentient ooze. It was Bakugo. Heroes were already on scene, but they were hanging back, discussing strategy. The sludge villain was laughing, using Bakugo's explosion quirk to keep everyone at bay. The situation was deteriorating rapidly. It didn't think. He moved. His massive frame bulldozed through the crowd like a warship cutting through waves. Heroes shouted at him to stay back, but he ignored them. He planted his feet in the middle of the street, facing the villain head-on. The sludge villain's eyes, liquid and malevolent, focused on him. Another brat? Perfect. Once I'm done with this one, I'll take your body instead. You look even stronger. Izuku set down his bicento carefully. Then he pulled back his right fist. Around his knuckles, the air began to shimmer. A sphere of white, glowing energy formed, growing larger with each second. Inside the sphere, space itself seemed to vibrate, fracturing like glass about to shatter. The temperature dropped. The ground beneath Izuku's feet cracked from the pressure. Heroes watching from the perimeter felt their instincts screaming at them to run, to get as far away as possible from whatever this kid was about to do. Gekishin, Izuku said quietly. He punched. The air in front of his fist didn't just move. It shattered. Reality itself seemed to crack like a mirror, spiderweb fractures spreading outward from the point of impact. The resulting shockwave was invisible but devastating, a concentrated pulse of vibrational energy that propagated forward in a perfect cone. The sludge villain had a single instant to register what was happening. Then the Gekishin hit. The effect was instantaneous. The villain's liquid body atomized, every molecule torn apart by vibrations oscillating at frequencies that matter simply couldn't withstand. The sludge scattered in all directions, reduced to harmless droplets that fell like rain across 3 city blocks. Bakugo collapsed to the ground, gasping and coughing. The bits of sludge on him evaporated into mist. Izuku walked forward calmly and knelt beside him. "Can you breathe?" Bakugo stared up at him with wide, shocked eyes. For once in his life, he had no words. He'd felt the shockwave pass over him, felt reality itself bending around Izuku's attack, felt how precisely controlled it had been to destroy the villain without harming the hostage. Bakugo coughed. "I'm fine." "Good." Izuku stood and retrieved his Bacento. Around them, heroes were staring in stunned silence. Some had their phones out, recording. The footage would be viral within the hour. A booming laugh echoed across the street. Remarkable. Izuku turned to see the number 1 hero himself, All Might, in his muscular form, standing on a nearby rooftop. The symbol of peace leaped down, landing with enough force to crack the pavement. "Young man," All Might said, approaching with a broad smile, "that was the most impressive display of quirk control I've seen in years. You destroyed the villain completely while keeping the hostage perfectly safe. What's your name?" "Izuku Midoriya, sir." Izuku bowed respectfully. Even at his enormous size, he showed proper deference to the number 1 hero. All Might studied him carefully. Up close, Izuku was even more impressive. His frame spoke of countless hours of training, his stance was perfectly balanced despite his size, and his eyes held a clarity of purpose that All Might rarely saw in adults, let alone teenagers. "You're applying to UA, aren't you?" All Might asked. "Yes, sir. The entrance exam is in 2 months. Then I look forward to seeing what you can do." All Might extended his hand. Izuku shook it, and for a moment, 2 titans stood together in the middle of the ruined street. "I have a feeling you're going to do great things, young Midoriya. You have the power and the heart. That's a rare combination." Izuku felt something warm bloom in his chest. Recognition from the symbol of peace himself. Validation that he was on the right path. "Thank you, All Might. I'll do my best to make you proud." All Might's smile widened. "I believe you will." Behind them, Bakugo was still sitting on the ground, staring at Izuku with an expression that was equal parts awe and resentment. He'd just been saved by the person he hated most. And more than that, he'd witnessed power that made his explosions look like fireworks. For the first time in his life, Bakugo Katsuki understood that he wasn't the strongest. Not even close. The day of the UA entrance exam arrived. Izuku stood outside the massive gates of UA High School, his Bacento strapped to his back, wearing a simple tank top and cargo pants that actually fit his frame. Around him, other applicants buzzed with nervous energy, chattering about strategies and quirks and point systems. He ignored all of it. His focus was absolute. A girl with brown hair and a bright smile approached him. "Wow, you're really tall. And is that a real weapon? I didn't know we were allowed to bring equipment to the exam." Izuku glanced down at her. She was barely over 5 feet tall, making the height difference almost comical. "It's part of my quirk," he explained. "I need a focus for channeling my power. And yes, it's real." UA approved it. "That's so cool. I'm Ochako Uraraka. What's your name?" "Izuku Midoriya." Her eyes widened. "Wait, Midoriya? As in Midoriya who destroyed the sludge villain last month? Midoriya? That video was incredible. You're like super famous." "I'm not here for fame," Izuku said firmly but not unkindly. "I'm here to become a hero." Before Uraraka could respond, a loud voice bellowed across the courtyard. "Examinees, proceed to the auditorium for your briefing." The crowd began moving. Izuku walked slowly, his size forcing others to part around him like a river around a boulder. He noticed people whispering, pointing. Some looked intimidated, others looked excited. Inside the auditorium, Present Mike explained the rules. Robots worth 1, 2, and 3 points scattered throughout a mock city. A 0-point robot that should be avoided. 10 minutes to accumulate as many points as possible. Simple enough. A blue-haired boy with glasses stood up, pointing dramatically at someone in the crowd. "Excuse me, you there! You've been muttering throughout this entire presentation. It's distracting." Izuku followed his gaze and saw a green-haired boy, much smaller than himself, normal-sized, frantically scribbling in a notebook. The boy jumped in surprise, apologizing profusely. "And you?" The glasses boy turned toward Izuku. "Is that weapon regulation? It seems dangerous to bring to an exam where we'll be fighting in close quarters with other applicants. Izuku met his gaze calmly. It's approved. I'm not going to hurt anyone who doesn't deserve it. Deserves it? This is an exam, not a battlefield. We should all be conducting ourselves with... Battle Center A, please proceed to your designated arena. Present Mike's voice cut through the argument. Izuku stood and walked toward the exit. The blue-haired boy sputtered, but ultimately followed his own group. As Izuku passed, he heard more whispers. That's him. Tremor. I heard he can cause earthquakes with his bare hands. My cousin's a sidekick. He said the Hero Commission wanted to classify Midoriya as too dangerous for hero work. Then why is he here? Because UA doesn't turn away power. They shape it. Izuku stepped out into the sunlight, his Bicento now in hand. Battle Center. Stretched before him, a massive mock city complete with buildings, streets, and obstacles. Dozens of other applicants clustered near the entrance, psyching themselves up. Present Mike's voice boomed from the speakers. And start! Everyone hesitated for a second, except Izuku. He marched forward, his footsteps heavy and purposeful. The ground trembled slightly with each step, a subconscious manifestation of his power. Other applicants rushed past him, eager to rack up points quickly. Let them. Izuku had a different strategy. The first robots appeared. 3 one-pointers rolling toward him on treads, sensors locked on. Izuku didn't break stride. He shifted his grip on the Bicento, spinning it in a wide arc over his head. Around the blade, the air began to shimmer. A translucent bubble of white energy coated the weapon, vibrating at frequencies that made nearby windows rattle. Naginata Rasetsu, Izuku said calmly. He swung horizontally. The blade didn't touch the robots. It didn't need to. The crescent-shaped shockwave that erupted from the swing cut through all 3 robots like they were made of paper, then continued onward to slice through a concrete building behind them. The top half of the structure slid off at a perfect diagonal angle, crashing to the ground in a cloud of dust. Izuku continued walking. More robots converged on his position, 2-pointers and 3-pointers, their targeting systems identifying him as a high-value threat. They formed a cluster, preparing to overwhelm him with numbers. Izuku stopped. He planted his Bicento in the ground like a flag. Then he pulled back both fists, one on each side of his body. White spheres of energy formed around his knuckles, growing larger and brighter. The air around him was visibly distorting, reality bending under the pressure of contained force. Cracks spread through the pavement beneath his feet. The robots opened fire. Nets, foam, electric prods, all non-lethal, but meant to incapacitate. Izuku punched forward with both fists simultaneously. Gekishin! Crack! The air shattered. Twin shockwaves erupted outward in a cone, the vibrations so intense they were visible as waves of distorted space. The projectiles disintegrated mid-flight. The robots, 15 of them, imploded, their metal frames crumpling inward as if crushed by invisible hands. The shockwaves continued past them, blowing out every window in a 3-block radius and sending other applicants stumbling from the pressure wave. Silence fell over that section of the arena. Izuku retrieved his Bicento and kept moving. Behind him, the destruction was total. Scrap metal and broken concrete littered the street. The point counter on his wrist blinked. 37 points. 37 points from 2 attacks. In less than a minute, other applicants were starting to notice. A boy with tape dispensers for elbows swung past Izuku, then stopped to stare at the devastation. Holy crap! Did you do all this? Izuku nodded. Stay alert. More robots incoming. Sure enough, a group of 2-pointers rounded the corner. The tape boy prepared to engage them, but Izuku simply reached out with one hand and grabbed empty air. His fingers closed around nothing, and then he pulled. Shima Yurashi. The entire street tilted. Gravity seemed to shift sideways as the ground itself buckled and warped. The robots lost their footing, tumbling over as the terrain became a 45-degree slope. Izuku walked up the tilted surface as if it were flat, his powerful legs compensating automatically. He reached the fallen robots and stomped once. The vibration traveled through the concrete, shaking the robots apart from the inside. Springs and circuits scattered across the tilted ground. The tape boy was clinging to a lamppost, eyes wide. What the hell kind of quirk is that? Tremor, Izuku answered simply. He released his grip on the air and the street settled back to level ground with a groan of stressed concrete. I can generate vibrations through any medium. It lets me manipulate the environment. That's insane. Izuku continued forward. His point counter now read 53. Across the arena in the observation room, the UA faculty watched the monitors in stunned silence. He's already in first place, Midnight said, leaning forward. And he's barely trying. Look at the efficiency, Eraserhead added, his tired eyes focused on Izuku's screen. No wasted movement, no showboating. He's treating this like a real mission. Swift, decisive, minimal collateral damage despite the power he's using. Principal Nezu sipped his tea, whiskers twitching with interest. Midoriya Izuku, quirk, tremor, classified as mutation emitter hybrid with disaster level potential. His middle school records show perfect control and 0 incidents of accidental harm. Quite remarkable. All Might, in his deflated form, stood in the corner, watching with a slight smile. I met that boy before. He has the heart of a true hero. The power is just a tool to him. That tool could level a city, Snipe pointed out. Which is exactly why we need him here, Nezu responded. Power like that needs to be guided, shaped, given proper purpose. If we reject him, where does he go? What does he become? On screen, Izuku was demolishing another cluster of robots with almost casual efficiency. His Bicento swept through them like wheat before a scythe, each swing accompanied by devastating shockwaves. He's going to pass, 13 said. Easily. Yes, Nezu agreed. The question is, what do we do with him once he's here? 8 minutes into the exam, Izuku's point counter read 89. He was pacing himself deliberately. Other applicants had spread throughout the arena, finding their own clusters of robots to fight. Some were struggling, others were excelling, but none matched Izuku's point total or efficiency. Then the ground began to shake, not from Izuku's power. This was different. Mechanical. Heavy. The 0-pointer emerged from behind a building, massive and imposing. 50 feet of reinforced steel, designed to be an obstacle rather than a target. Its optical sensors swept the area, and applicants began fleeing. Izuku heard the screaming. He turned and saw Uraraka, the girl from earlier, trapped under debris, her leg pinned. She was directly in the 0-pointer's path. He moved. Other applicants were running away. Izuku ran toward the danger, his massive frame covering ground in enormous strides. The 0-pointer raised one huge fist, preparing to crush everything in its path. Izuku arrived first. He didn't stop running. He lowered his shoulder and slammed into the robot's leg like a freight train. The impact was colossal. The sound of flesh and bone meeting steel echoed across the arena. The 0-pointer's leg buckled. The entire structure tilted backward. Get her out! Izuku roared at the nearby applicants. Several rushed forward to pull Uraraka free while Izuku held the robot at bay. The 0-pointer's arms swung down at him. Izuku raised his Bicento, blocking the strike. Metal screamed against metal. The shockwave from the collision shattered nearby windows. Izuku's feet dug furrows in the concrete as he was pushed backward, but he didn't fall. You want to fight? Izuku's voice dropped to something primal. Then let's fight! He planted his Bicento in the ground and grabbed the 0-palm with both hands. White energy began to glow around his grip, seeping into the robot's structure. Gekishin. The vibrations traveled through the robot's arm, down into its torso, spreading through every joint and bolt and circuit. The 0-pointer began to shake violently, its internal mechanisms rattling apart. Warning lights flickered across its frame. Izuku pulled. With a groan of tortured metal, he ripped the 0-pointer's arm off, oil sprayed. Sparks flew. The robot stumbled backward, balance destroyed. Izuku tossed the severed arm aside. It weighed several tons, but he threw it like it was made of cardboard and retrieved his Bicento. The 0-pointer tried to fire its shoulder cannons. Foam and nets launched toward Izuku. He spun his Bicento in a defensive pattern, creating a barrier of vibrating air that shredded the projectiles before they could reach him. Then, he charged forward, closing the distance to the robot's chest. Kabudawari! He punched the 0-pointer's torso with a fist coated in a concentrated vibration bubble. The armor plating cracked, the internal structure buckled. The vibrations traveled into the robot's core, shattering the power supply and fracturing the main support struts. The 0-pointer toppled backward, crashing to the ground with an impact that registered on seismographs throughout the city. It lay there, broken and smoking, thoroughly defeated. Izuku stood over it, breathing heavily but still standing strong. His knuckles were bleeding. Even his reinforced body couldn't punch steel repeatedly without damage, but he'd won. Around him, other applicants stared in absolute shock. He destroyed the zero-pointer. That's impossible. It's designed to be indestructible. Who is that guy? That's Midoriya. Tremor. He just soloed the obstacle that's supposed to make everyone run away. The buzzer sounded, ending the exam. Izuku walked over to where Uraraka sat, her leg now free from the debris. Are you okay? She looked up at him with tears in her eyes. You saved me. I was so scared, and you destroyed that thing like it was nothing. It's what heroes do, Izuku said simply. He offered her his hand, massive and scarred but gentle. Can you walk? She took his hand and stood, testing her weight. I think so. Thank you. Really, I thought I was going to fail, or worse. You didn't fail, Izuku assured her. You fought hard. That's what matters. Present Mike's voice boomed across the arena. Exam complete. All applicants please proceed to the exit. Izuku walked slowly toward the exit, Uraraka hobbling beside him. Other applicants gave him a wide berth, still processing what they'd witnessed. The blue-haired boy from earlier approached, adjusting his glasses. That was most impressive, he admitted stiffly. I apologize for my earlier comments about your weapon. You clearly have exemplary control. I am Tenya Ida, from the Ida family of heroes. Izuku Midoriya. Nice to meet you. The pleasure is mine! Though I must say, your combat performance was far beyond what I expected from fellow applicants. You're clearly in a league of your own. I just did what needed to be done, Izuku replied. That's all. In the observation room, the faculty were already making decisions. Perfect score, Midnight announced. 91 villain points plus 60 rescue points for saving multiple applicants and destroying the zero-pointer to protect others. 151 points total. That's the highest score in UA entrance exam history. He's in, Nezu declared, obviously. The real question is class placement. Aizawa, what do you think? Eraserhead was still watching the replay of Izuku's final punch. Put him in 1A. If anyone can handle teaching someone that powerful, it's me. Plus, having him as a benchmark will push the other students to improve. Agreed, All Might added. And I'll keep an eye on him. Make sure his power doesn't isolate him from his peers. A hero that's strong needs to remember how to work with others. Then it's settled, Nezu said with a smile. Welcome to UA, Midoriya Izuku. Let's see what you become. 2 weeks later, Izuku received his acceptance letter. He was in his room, a space dominated by hero posters, a massive reinforced bed that could support his weight, and a rack holding his basento, when his mother knocked on the door. Izuku? A letter came from UA. His heart hammered. This was it. The moment that would determine his future. He opened the envelope carefully. A projection device fell out, activating automatically. All Might's face appeared in miniature, his signature smile beaming. Young Midoriya, I'm here to deliver your results personally. You scored 91 villain points, the most of any applicant. But that's not all. Our faculty identified something crucial. You stopped your own exam to save another applicant. You destroyed an obstacle designed to be unbeatable, not for points, but to protect someone in danger. For that selfless heroism, you've been awarded 60 rescue points. Inko gasped beside Izuku, her hands flying to her mouth. All Might continued. You passed, young man. You're the top scorer in this year's entrance exam. Welcome to UA High School. This is your hero academia. The projection faded. Izuku sat in silence for a moment, processing. Then he felt his mother's arms wrap around him as much as they could. He was so large now that she barely reached his chest. You did it, baby, she whispered, crying. I'm so proud of you. Izuku hugged her back carefully, always conscious of his strength. I'm going to be a hero, Mom. A real hero. Someone who protects everyone. I know you will. She pulled back, wiping her tears. Your father would be so proud, wherever he is. Izuku thought about his father, Hisashi Midoriya, who'd left when Izuku was young, unable to handle the stress of raising a child with disaster-level power. The man had sent money but never visited. Never called. It didn't matter. Izuku had his mother. He had his dream. And now he had his chance. When do classes start? Inko asked. 2 weeks, Izuku replied, reading the additional materials. I need to get my uniform fitted, and they want me to meet with the support department about my Bicento. Apparently, they have suggestions for upgrades. Upgrades? Honey, that thing already cuts through buildings. Then imagine what it'll do with proper hero-grade materials, Izuku said with a slight smile. I'm going to need every advantage I can get. UA won't be easy. The real training starts now. He stood and retrieved his Bicento, feeling its comfortable weight in his hands. For years, this weapon had been an extension of himself, a focus for his devastating power. At UA, he'd learned to push beyond his current limits. He'd face villains, disasters, situations that would test everything he was, and he'd succeed, because failure wasn't an option. Too many people needed heroes. Too many families needed protection. Izuku Midoriya would become the hero the world needed, the pillar that held up the sky when everything else crumbled. The first day of UA arrived. Izuku walked through the massive gates wearing his new uniform, specially tailored to fit his enormous frame, the jacket straining slightly across his shoulders. His Bicento was strapped to his back in a new leather harness designed by the support department. The weapon had been reinforced with carbon nanotubes and hero-grade alloys, making it capable of withstanding even greater forces. Class 1A was on the top floor. Izuku climbed the stairs slowly, noting the reinforced construction. UA was built to withstand quirk-related damage, which was good because his mere presence sometimes caused minor vibrations. He found the classroom and slid the door open. Inside, several students were already present, chatting nervously. Conversation stopped when Izuku entered. His size was imposing in the hallway. In a classroom, it was overwhelming. He had to duck slightly to avoid hitting his head on the doorframe. His Bicento scraped the ceiling. "Whoa," someone breathed. Uraraka jumped up from her seat, waving enthusiastically. "Midoriya, you made it! I'm so glad!" "Uraraka, good to see you again." Izuku made his way to an empty seat in the back, the only one that looked like it might support his weight. It had been reinforced, probably specifically for him. Ida stood as well, gesturing sharply. "Midoriya, I should have known you'd be in this class. Your exam performance was exceptional. I look forward to our time as classmates." "Same here, Ida." More students filed in. A boy with red and white hair entered, his mismatched eyes, one brown, one blue, scanning the room with cold assessment. He looked at Izuku for a long moment, then took a seat without speaking. A blond boy with a distinctive black lightning streak in his hair entered next, saw Izuku, and immediately grinned. "Dude, you're huge! What's your quirk? Can you, transform into a giant?" "My name's Izuku Midoriya. My quirk is Tremor. I can generate vibrations through any medium. No transformation." "That's so cool. I'm Denki Kaminari. My quirk is electrification." He zapped his fingers, little bolts arcing between them. A pink-skinned girl with horns bounced over. Midoriya? The Midoriya? From the entrance exam? Girl, you're legendary. I'm Mina Ashido, Acid Quirk. We're gonna be best friends." More introductions followed. Kirishima with his hardening, Jiro with her earphone jacks, Tokoyami with his shadow beast. Each student unique, each powerful in their own right. Then Bakugo walked in. He stopped dead when he saw Izuku. His red eyes widened, then narrowed with immediate hostility. "You." "Bakugo." Izuku's voice was neutral. "Congratulations on getting in." "Don't patronize me," Bakugo snarled. He stalked to a seat as far from Izuku as possible, radiating anger. "Just because you're big doesn't mean you're better." "I never said I was." "Shut up!" The classroom fell silent. Tension thick. Several students looked between them nervously. This clearly wasn't their first conflict. Before anyone could speak, a tired voice came from the doorway. "If you're here to make friends, leave. This is UA's hero course." Everyone turned. A man in a sleeping bag was lying on the floor in the hallway, bloodshot eyes staring at them. He wormed his way into the classroom, stood up, and unzipped the sleeping bag. "I'm Shota Aizawa, your homeroom teacher. Get your gym uniforms and meet me outside. We're doing a quirk assessment test." Groans rippled through the class. "But what about the entrance ceremony?" Uraraka asked. "The orientation?" "UA lets me run my class however I see fit," Aizawa replied flatly. "And I don't believe in wasting time. Heroes don't get orientation in the field. They get thrown into danger and expected to perform. So that's what we're doing. Outside. Now." The class scrambled to comply. On the training field, Aizawa explained the rules. You'll complete 8 physical tests using your quirks. Whoever places last in overall ranking gets expelled. Immediately. Shock rippled through the students. "That's not fair," Uraraka protested. "We just got here." "Fair?" Aizawa's expression was harsh. Natural disasters aren't fair. Villain attacks aren't fair. If you think you can coast through UA on potential alone, you're in the wrong place. Heroes save lives. If you can't perform under pressure, you don't belong here. He turned to Izuku. Midoriya, you scored highest on the entrance exam. Come here. Izuku approached, his gym uniform straining against his muscular frame. Up close, Aizawa looked almost comically small compared to him. Softball throw, Aizawa said, tossing him a ball. You threw 67 meters in middle school without using your quirk. Show me what you can do when you go all out. Izuku took the ball. The entire class watched as he stepped into the throwing circle, his bicento planted beside him. He rolled his shoulders, feeling the power coiled in his muscles. Then he reared back and threw. The ball left his hand with explosive force. But halfway through the throwing motion, Izuku had coated the ball in a thin layer of vibrational energy. The moment it left his fingers, he sent a pulse through that coating. A miniature Gekishin focused entirely on propelling the ball forward. The sonic boom was deafening. The ball accelerated like a missile. Faster and faster, the vibrations propelling it beyond normal physics. It vanished into the distance, a white streak against the blue sky. Aizawa checked his device. His eyebrows rose slightly, the closest he got to showing surprise. 1,067 meters. The class erupted. 1,000? That's impossible. He basically used his quirk to create a railgun. Bakugo was staring at the distance marker, his fists clenched so tight his knuckles were white. That throw was more than 15 times what he could do. The gap between them wasn't a gap, it was a chasm. That's the power of quirks, Aizawa continued, addressing the class. And that's why the last person gets expelled. If you can't find creative ways to apply your abilities like Midoriya just did, you're not ready to be heroes. Now, everyone else, it's your turn. The tests continued. Izuku dominated every single 50-meter dash. He punched the ground behind him at the starting line, using the recoil to launch himself forward. Time, 2.1 seconds. Grip strength. He channeled vibrations through his hand while squeezing. The machine's maximum reading was 800 kilograms. It broke before registering his full strength, standing long jump. He punched the air behind him, using the shockwave as propulsion. Distance. Entire sandbox. Sustained sideways jumps. He created small quakes under his feet with each hop, using the rebounds to accelerate. The counter stopped at 500 before the time ran out. Sit-ups, lost count after 1,000. His core strength was absurd. The other students performed well. Bakugo excelled at explosive power. Todoroki demonstrated incredible ice control. Ida's speed was impressive, but none came close to Izuku's raw dominance. By the end, the rankings were clear. First, Izuku Midoriya, second, Shoto Todoroki, third, Katsuki Bakugo. Fourth, Tenya Ida. 20th, Minoru Mineta. Aizawa called Mineta forward. The small boy was trembling, tears in his eyes. You're expelled, Aizawa said flatly. But I tried my best. Please, give me another chance. Heroes don't get second chances. Civilians don't get do-overs. Either you can perform or you can't. Aizawa turned away. Security will escort you out. As Mineta was led away, sobbing, the remaining 19 students stood in shocked silence. The reality of UA was sinking in. This wasn't high school. This was hero training. Real, brutal, unforgiving. The rest of you passed, Aizawa said. Barely. If you think today was hard, you're in for a rude awakening. Tomorrow we start combat training. Dismissed. The class walked back to the locker rooms in silence. Izuku noticed several students glancing at him with a mix of awe and intimidation. He just demonstrated a power level far beyond his peers. In a single day, he'd established himself as the strongest in the class. In the boys' locker room, Kirishima broke the silence. Dude, Midoriya, that was insane. You're like superhuman. Just trained, Izuku replied modestly, changing back into his uniform. Just trained? You threw a ball a kilometer, Kaminari added. That's not training, that's being a monster. In a good way, like a heroic monster. Todoroki spoke up from his corner, his voice cold. Your quirk is powerful, but power alone doesn't make a hero. Remember that. He left before Izuku could respond. Ida adjusted his glasses. Todoroki is correct in one sense. Power must be tempered with responsibility. But I believe you understand that already, Midoriya. Your rescue of Uraraka during the exam proved your heroic spirit. Thanks, Ida. Bakugo slammed his locker shut and stormed out without a word, his anger palpable. Kirishima whistled low. He really doesn't like you, huh? We have history, Izuku said simply, but that's between us. The rest of the first week passed in a blur of classes. Foundational hero studies with All Might, English with Present Mic, math with ectoplasms. Each teacher brought their own style, their own challenges, but the students lived for hero studies. On Friday, All Might announced the day's lesson with characteristic enthusiasm. Foundational hero studies. Today we'll be doing battle training. The class cheered. Finally, actual combat. You'll be divided into teams of 2. All Might continued. Heroes versus villains. One team will guard a mock nuclear weapon, the other will try to capture it or subdue the villains. Your hero costumes are ready in the locker rooms. Get suited up! Izuku's costume was waiting, a white coat with blue accents open-fronted to accommodate his massive chest with reinforced shoulders and arms, dark pants with armored plating, boots with shock-absorbing soles, and a modified harness for his bisento that allowed quick drawing. He looked at himself in the mirror. He looked like a warrior, a protector, a hero. The class gathered at Training Ground Beta, each student showing off their costume designs. Uraraka had a skin-tight suit for maximum mobility. Ida had armor covering his legs to amplify his speed. Bakugo wore a combat jacket with massive gauntlets. All Might began drawing lots for teams. The teams are Team A, Midoriya and Uraraka. Team B, Todoroki and Sato. Team C, Bakugo and Ida. Izuku found Uraraka in the crowd. She waved nervously. Looks like we're partners. We'll do fine, Izuku assured her. Your quirk is versatile. We can work with it. The first match was announced. Team A, you're the heroes. Team C, you're the villains. Heroes, you have 15 minutes to capture the weapon or subdue the villains. Izuku and Uraraka stood at the entrance to the training building. Inside, Bakugo and Ida were waiting. Strategy? Uraraka asked. Izuku studied the building. Bakugo will come after me. He won't be able to help himself. That means Ida will be guarding the weapon alone. I'll keep Bakugo busy on the lower floors. You use your quirk to float up the outside of the building and come in through an upper window. Ida won't expect an aerial approach. But what about Bakugo? He's really strong. I'll handle him. Izuku's voice left no room for doubt. Trust me. The buzzer sounded. The match began. Izuku walked into the building's ground floor, his bisento resting on his shoulder. The interior was maze-like, corridors and rooms designed to provide tactical options. Perfect for ambushes, he didn't have to wait long. Deku. Bakugo exploded around a corner, palms crackling with built-up force. He launched himself at Izuku with a massive explosion, the blast designed to overwhelm. Izuku didn't dodge. He swung his bisento in a vertical arc, creating a wall of compressed air that deflected the explosion sideways. The blast tore through a concrete wall instead of hitting him. Still using that stupid nickname, Izuku said calmly. Thought we were past that. I'll never be past that, Bakugo roared. He fired a rapid barrage of explosions, each one powerful enough to crater concrete. You think you're better than me? You think your freakish power makes you special? Izuku blocked with his bisento, the weapon absorbing impacts that would have killed a normal person. I've never thought I was better than you, Bakugo. You're the one who turned this into a competition. Because you're supposed to be nothing. Bakugo's face was twisted with rage and something else, something that looked almost like desperation. You were quirkless, pathetic, and now you're stronger than you. Izuku finished quietly. That's what this is really about, isn't it? Bakugo screamed and unleashed his biggest explosion yet, both palms aimed directly at Izuku's chest. Izuku reached out with his free hand and grabbed the empty air in front of him. He channeled a precise vibration through that space, creating a spherical barrier of oscillating frequencies that caught the explosion and dispersed it harmlessly. Then he moved. His speed was terrifying despite his size. He closed the distance to Bakugo in 2 enormous strides, his bisento already swinging. The blade stopped inches from Bakugo's neck, controlled with perfect precision. Match over, Izuku said. In a real fight, you'd be dead. Bakugo stared at the blade, his eyes wide. He'd barely seen Izuku move. The gap between them wasn't just about raw power, it was skill, experience, control. Bakugo's voice was barely a whisper. I haven't lost. Yes, you have. Accept it. Before Bakugo could respond, All Might's voice boomed through the speakers. Hero team wins! Uraraka has secured the weapon! Bakugo's expression crumbled. Not only had he lost to Izuku, but the weak girl had outmaneuvered Ida while he was distracted. Izuku withdrew his Bicento and walked past Bakugo toward the exit. You're strong, Bakugo, but strength isn't enough. You need to work with others. Trust others. Until you learn that, you'll keep losing. He left Bakugo kneeling in the hallway, fists clenched, trembling with suppressed emotion. Back in the observation room, the class watched in silence. Midoriya completely dominated that fight, Kirishima said in awe. Bakugo didn't land a single hit. Of course not, Todoroki replied, his tone analytical. Midoriya's quirk is superior in every way. Vibrations can be used defensively and offensively. Explosions are powerful but one-dimensional. It was never a fair match. All Might cleared his throat. Midoriya showed excellent control and restraint. He could have ended the match in seconds, but chose to keep Bakugo engaged while Uraraka completed the objective. That's tactical thinking. Well done, both of you. Uraraka beamed. Izuku simply nodded, his expression serious. The matches continued. Todoroki and Sato faced off against another team, with Todoroki freezing the entire building in seconds. Other pairs showed creative quirk applications and teamwork, but everyone knew who the real standout was. Izuku Midoriya had established himself not just as strong, but as completely dominant, a force of nature that couldn't be opposed directly. After class, as students filed out, Todoroki approached Izuku. Midoriya, I want to talk. Sure, what's up? Todoroki's mismatched eyes were intense, almost burning. Your power, it's overwhelming, almost unnatural. Did you inherit it from your father? My father left when I was young, Izuku replied, confused by the question. I don't know what his quirk was. My mother's quirk is weak telekinesis, small objects only. Tremor is my own mutation. I see. Todoroki seemed disappointed somehow. Then you earned your power through luck of birth, just like me. What are you getting at? My father is Endeavor, the number 2 hero. He married my mother for her quirk, trying to create the perfect child who could surpass All Might. I'm his masterpiece, half ice, half fire, but also his prisoner. Todoroki's left side, his fire side, seemed to radiate cold hatred. I refuse to use my left side. I'll never give him the satisfaction of seeing his plan succeed. Izuku frowned. That's your choice, but you're limiting yourself out of spite. Heroes can't afford to hold back. Easy for you to say. You don't have a monster for a father. No, I have an absent father who couldn't handle the responsibility of raising me, Izuku countered. I get it, Todoroki. Family can be complicated, but your power is yours, not your father's. You're the one who decides what to do with it. Todoroki stared at him for a long moment. You don't understand. Maybe not. But I know that if you keep refusing half your power, someone's going to die because you weren't at full strength. Can you live with that? Todoroki's jaw clenched. He turned and walked away without responding. Izuku watched him go, troubled. This class was full of powerful students with complex backgrounds. Bakugo with his inferiority complex, Todoroki with his family trauma, Ida carrying his family's legacy, each one fighting their own battles, and Izuku was the strongest. Which meant he had a responsibility, not just to protect them physically, but to help them grow into the heroes they needed to be. Family, he thought. They're all part of my family now, and I protect my family. 3 days later, the USJ incident changed everything. Class 1A boarded the bus to the unforeseen simulation joint for rescue training with 13. Aizawa accompanied them, looking as exhausted as always. The mood was light, students chatting, excited for a change of pace from combat training. Izuku sat in the back of the bus, his size requiring a specially reinforced seat. Kirishima had taken the seat across from him, chattering enthusiastically about manly rescue techniques. I'm just saying, being able to harden means I can shield people from falling debris. That's super useful in disaster scenarios. It is, Izuku agreed. Your quirk is versatile. You could also use it to create stable pathways through rubble. Oh man, I didn't even think of that. You're smart, Midoriya. The bus arrived at the USJ, a massive dome facility containing multiple disaster zones. Flood zone, fire zone, landslide zone, each designed to simulate real rescue scenarios. 13 greeted them enthusiastically. Welcome, students. Today, we'll be learning about disaster rescue. My quirk Black Hole is incredibly powerful, but also incredibly dangerous if misused. That's why control and awareness are crucial for heroes. As 13 spoke, Izuku felt something wrong. A prickling at the back of his neck. an instinct honed through years of training his senses to detect even the slightest vibrations in his environment. The air pressure changed. A dark portal opened in the center plaza. Villains poured through, dozens of them. Hundreds. All armed, all dangerous, all clearly coordinated. This wasn't a random attack. This was an organized assault. At the center stood a man covered in disembodied hands, scratching at his neck. Beside him, a massive creature with an exposed brain and black skin. "Everyone get back!" Aizawa shouted. His scarf unfurled, his goggles snapped down. 13! Protect the students! "There's too many," Kaminari whispered, backing away. "We should run!" Izuku stepped forward. His Bicento slid into his hands, the familiar weight grounding him. Around him, the air began to shimmer with barely contained power. "No," he said firmly. "We stand and fight." "Midoriya," Ida grabbed his shoulder. "We're students. We should escape and call for backup." "Look at them." Izuku pointed at the villains below. "They're surrounding the exits. They planned this. Whoever's in charge knew UA's schedule and layout. This is a coordinated attack, which means they have a specific goal." The hand-covered villain, Shigaraki Tomura, looked up at them and giggled. "Where's All Might? We came to kill All Might." Aizawa charged into the horde, his quirk erasing abilities as he fought. His combat skills were impressive. He took down 3 villains in seconds, but there were too many. He was being overwhelmed. The Nomu moved. It was fast. Impossibly fast for something so large. It grabbed Aizawa mid-strike, slammed him into the ground hard enough to crack concrete, then began systematically breaking his arm. Aizawa screamed. "No!" Izuku roared. He leaped from the top of the stairs, his massive frame hurtling through the air. He landed in the center plaza with an impact that shattered the ground beneath him, creating a crater 10 feet wide. Every villain froze. Izuku stood slowly, his Bicento planted beside him. Blood was dripping from his hands. His landing had been hard enough to split his knuckles, but his expression was calm. Deadly calm. Let him go. Shigaraki cocked his head like a curious bird. "Oh, a student wants to play hero? How cute, Nomu. Kill him." The Nomu released Aizawa and focused on Izuku. It charged, moving faster than something that size had any right to move. Izuku didn't flinch. He pulled back his fist. White energy gathered around his knuckles, growing brighter and brighter until it looked like he was holding a miniature star. The ground beneath him cracked from the pressure. The air itself seemed to vibrate. Gekishin. He punched forward. His fist met the Nomu's charge head-on. Crack. The sound of reality shattering echoed across the USJ. The air fractured in a massive spiderweb pattern, visible distortions spreading from the point of impact. The shockwave was so powerful it was visible, a cone of compressed force that slammed into the Nomu like divine judgment. The creature flew backward. It crashed through 3 concrete pillars and embedded itself in the wall of the USJ, the impact cratering the reinforced structure. Silence fell over the plaza. Every villain stared at Izuku in shock. Students watching from the stairs stood frozen. Even Shigaraki stopped scratching his neck. The Nomu extracted itself from the wall. Its chest was caved in, ribs visible through torn skin. But as they watched, the damage began regenerating. Flesh knitted back together, bones realigned. In seconds, the Nomu looked unharmed. "Shock absorption and super regeneration," Shigaraki said gleefully. "The Nomu was designed to fight All Might. Your punch was strong, but not strong enough." The Nomu charged again. Izuku spun his Bicento, coating the blade in vibrational energy. Naginata Rasetsu. He swung horizontally. The crescent shockwave caught the Nomu mid-charge, slicing through its torso. The upper and lower halves of its body separated, but even that wasn't enough. The Nomu's regeneration kicked in, pulling its body back together with grotesque speed. "You see?" Shigaraki laughed. "You can't win. No matter how hard you hit, the Nomu won't die. It's perfect." Izuku's eyes narrowed. Regeneration and absorption. The thing could heal from almost any wound and reduce the force of impacts. A nearly perfect defensive combination. But Izuku understood something crucial about his quirk. Vibrations didn't just damage surfaces. They traveled through materials, attacking from the inside. The Nomu charged a 3rd time. Izuku didn't use his Bicento. He dropped it and spread his arms wide. "Come on then." The Nomu's fist came in like a freight train. Izuku caught it with both hands. The impact sent shockwaves through the ground, creating a massive crater around them. His feet dug furrows in the concrete, but he held firm. Then he smiled. A fierce, confident smile that would have looked at home on a warrior's face. My turn. He channeled his power directly into the Nomu's arm. Not an external shockwave, an internal vibration that traveled through bone and muscle and organ. The Nomu's shock absorption could reduce external force, but it couldn't stop vibrations that were already inside its body. The Nomu's arm exploded. Flesh and bone and blood sprayed outward as the limb was shaken apart from the inside. It regenerated. But Izuku was already moving. He grabbed the Nomu's head with both massive hands. Kabutawari. He drove his forehead into the Nomu's skull. At the moment of impact, he released a focused pulse of vibrational energy directly into the creature's brain. The Nomu seized. Its regeneration faltered. Its eyes rolled back. Izuku lifted the Nomu overhead. The thing weighed over half a ton, but he hoisted it like a sandbag and slammed it into the ground with devastating force. The plaza floor shattered. The Nomu's body was driven 5 feet into the concrete. Izuku kept going. He rained down punches, each one coated in geikishin. Each impact traveling through the Nomu's body and scrambling its internal organs faster than it could regenerate. The creature's brain, its most vital organ, was being turned to mush by repeated vibrational trauma. Finally, the Nomu stopped moving. Izuku stood over its broken body, breathing heavily. Blood covered his fists, some of it the Nomu's, some of it his own. His knuckles were split open from the repeated impacts. He turned to face Shigaraki Tamura. "Your monster is dead. You're next." Shigaraki stumbled backwards, scratching frantically at his neck. No, this isn't how it's supposed to go. You're just a student. You're not supposed to be this strong. "I'm Izuku Midoriya," Izuku said, his voice carrying across the plaza. "And these students, these people, they're under my protection. You hurt one of them. You attacked my teacher. You threatened my family." He took a step forward. The ground cracked beneath his feet. "Did you really think I'd let you walk away?" Shigaraki's portal user Kurogiri materialized beside him. "Tamura Shigaraki, we must retreat. This situation has become untenable. The student is too powerful." "No!" Shigaraki shrieked. "We came to kill All Might. We can't leave empty-handed." "We'll die if we stay," Kurogiri insisted. The portal began forming around them. Izuku lunged forward, covering the distance in a single bound. But he was too late. Shigaraki and Kurogiri vanished into the portal. The remaining villains scattered, fleeing through secondary portals that appeared throughout the USJ. In seconds, the plaza was empty except for Izuku, the unconscious Aizawa, and the corpse of the Nomu. Izuku knelt beside Aizawa, checking his pulse. Still alive. Injured badly. His arm was definitely broken, probably his ribs too, but alive. "Stay behind me, sons and daughters," Izuku called up to the students still clustered at the entrance. "The villains are retreating, but stay alert." Footsteps echoed. All Might burst through the entrance, his muscular form radiating power. He took in the scene, the destroyed plaza, the dead Nomu, Izuku covered in blood, Aizawa unconscious. "Young Midoriya, what happened?" "Villain attack," Izuku reported crisply, his voice steady despite his exhaustion. "Organized group, led by someone called Shigaraki Tamura. They had a bioengineered creature designed to fight you. I neutralized it. The villains retreated. Aizawa-sensei is injured but stable." All Might stared at the Nomu's corpse, at the devastation around them, at this 15-year-old student who just defeated a monster designed to kill the symbol of peace. You saved everyone." "That's what heroes do," Izuku said simply. Then his legs gave out. He collapsed to one knee, the adrenaline finally wearing off. His hands were shaking. He just killed something. The Nomu was barely human, more beast than person, but still, he'd taken a life. All Might caught him before he could fall completely. "Easy, young man, you've done more than enough. Let me take it from here." Backup arrived minutes later. Heroes, police, medics, they swarmed the USJ, securing the area and tending to injuries. Aizawa was rushed to Recovery Girl. The students were evacuated. Izuku sat in the back of an ambulance, letting a medic bandage his hands. Around him, reporters were already gathering, cameras flashing. The story was already spreading. UA student defeats villain monster. First-year hero course. Student saves entire class. Meet Izuku Midoriya, the strongest student in UA history. Kirishima and Kaminari rushed over, both talking at once. "Dude, that was insane! You destroyed that thing like it was nothing." "Are you okay? Your hands look bad." "I'm fine," Izuku assured them. "Just tired. Is everyone else okay?" We're all fine thanks to you, Ida said, approaching with his usual formal bearing. Midoriya, your actions today were nothing short of heroic. You truly embody the spirit of a hero. Uraraka was crying. I thought we were going to die. That monster was so scary, and then you just fought it head on without any fear. I was afraid, Izuku admitted, but I couldn't let that stop me. You're all my family now. I protect my family. The words hung in the air. Family. Not classmates or peers or teammates. Family. Something shifted in that moment. The other students looked at Izuku differently now. Not with fear or intimidation, but with respect. With trust. With the knowledge that this massive, powerful student would stand between them and any danger, no matter how overwhelming. Todoroki stood apart from the group, watching silently. His expression was unreadable, but something in his eyes had changed. Bakugo was the furthest away, leaning against a wall with his arms crossed. He was staring at the ground, his face hidden. But his shoulders were shaking slightly. The gap between them had just grown wider. While Bakugo was still struggling with basic teamwork, Izuku had defeated a monster designed to kill All Might. The comparison was devastating. The next day, UA was on lockdown. Enhanced security, police presence, emergency drills. The USJ attack had exposed vulnerabilities in the school's defenses, and Principal Nezu was taking no chances. Class 1A gathered in their homeroom, but Aizawa was absent, still recovering from his injuries. A substitute teacher covered the basic lessons, but the atmosphere was subdued. During lunch, Izuku found himself surrounded by students from other classes. Is it true you killed that monster with your bare hands? What's your quirk? How are you so strong? Can I get your autograph? Izuku tried to answer politely, but the attention was overwhelming. He wasn't used to being famous. He'd always been the kid everyone avoided because of his dangerous quirk. Ida noticed his discomfort and intervened. Please give Midoriya some space. He's had a traumatic experience and needs time to process. The crowd dispersed reluctantly. Izuku shot Ida a grateful look. Thanks. It's the least I could do. You saved all our lives yesterday. They found a quiet corner to eat lunch. Uraraka, Todoroki, and a few others joined them, a small group forming naturally around Izuku's presence. So what happens now? Uraraka asked. Are we safe? Will there be more attacks? The police are investigating, Ida reported. My brother, Ingenium, said the League of Villains is a new organization. This was their first major operation. They'll likely go underground after their failure. They came for All Might, Todoroki said quietly, specifically for him. That means they have plans. Resources. This isn't over. Izuku agreed. Shigaraki seemed unstable but intelligent, and that Nomu, someone with serious resources, created it. We're dealing with an organized threat, not random villains. Then we train harder, Kirishima declared, slamming his fist on the table. We get stronger so next time we can fight back even better. Agreed, Izuku said. The USJ showed me my limits. I need to push past them. Your limits? Kaminari laughed incredulously. Dude, you soloed a boss monster. What limits? I'm not invincible. The Nomu landed several hits on me. If it had been even stronger, or if there had been multiple Nomus, I might have lost. I need more techniques, better control, greater power. The others fell silent. Even after demonstrating overwhelming strength, Izuku was already thinking about how to improve. His dedication was sobering. Todoroki spoke up. You told me to use my full power, that holding back would get people killed. I did. You were right. Todoroki's left side, his fire side, flickered with small flames. I've decided I'll start using my left side, not for my father, for myself, to be strong enough to protect others like you protected us. Izuku smiled. Good. You'll be a better hero for it. Across the cafeteria, Bakugo sat alone. He'd been silent all morning, his usual aggressive energy muted. His hands were clenched so tight his fingers were white. He'd watched Izuku fight the Nomu, watched him stand against impossible odds, watched him win. And Bakugo realized something that shattered his worldview. He would have died. If Bakugo had faced that monster, he'd be dead. His explosions would have been useless against its regeneration and absorption. His combat style, aggressive, straightforward, would have gotten him killed. But Izuku had adapted, analyzed, found the weakness and exploited it. Bakugo had spent his entire life believing he was destined for greatness, that his powerful quirk and natural talent made him superior. The universe owed him success. Now, sitting alone while everyone celebrated Izuku, Bakugo faced the truth. He wasn't the strongest, he wasn't the smartest, he wasn't the best, and he didn't know how to handle that. 2 weeks later, UA announced the sports festival. The entire school buzzed with excitement. The sports festival was the biggest event of the year, a chance for students to showcase their abilities to the entire nation. Pro heroes, support companies, and agencies would be watching. It was the ultimate recruiting opportunity. "This is our chance to make names for ourselves," Kaminari said excitedly during homeroom. "Pro heroes will be scouting. We could get internship offers." "Indeed," Ida agreed. "The sports festival has launched many successful hero careers. We must all perform our best." Aizawa, back from medical leave with his arms still bandaged, stood at the front of the class. "The festival is in 2 weeks. I expect all of you to train hard. After the USJ attack, the school wants to show the public that UA students are strong and capable. Don't embarrass yourselves or this institution." "Yes, Sensei," the class chorused. Over the next 2 weeks, Izuku trained harder than ever. He worked with his Baisento, developing new techniques. He practiced his Gekishin until he could control the exact shape and range of the shockwave. He trained his Shima Yurashi to affect smaller, more precise areas instead of tilting entire streets. He also worked on his physical endurance. The fight with the Nomu had shown him that raw power wasn't enough. He needed stamina to sustain long battles. Other students trained too. Todoroki practiced combining his ice and fire. Bakugo worked on new explosion techniques. Ida focused on improving his speed. The entire class was pushing their limits. The day of the sports festival arrived. The stadium was packed. Thousands of spectators filled the stands, waving banners and cheering. Cameras were everywhere. This event was broadcast nationwide. President Mike's voice boomed across the arena. "Welcome to UAS Sports Festival. Today, our first-year students will compete for glory. Let's welcome Class 1A." Izuku walked out with his class, his Baisento strapped to his back. The roar of the crowd was deafening. He'd never experienced anything like this. The weight of thousands of eyes watching, judging, hoping. At the center of the field, Midnight, serving as the festival's referee, called for attention. "The first-year representative will now give the opening pledge." Bakugo stepped forward. He'd been chosen as representative because of his high academic and practical scores. "I pledge." Bakugo paused, his red eyes scanning the crowd. Then they locked on Izuku. "That I'm going to win, and I'll beat everyone who gets in my way." The crowd gasped, some booed. That wasn't what a representative was supposed to say. But Bakugo didn't care. He stared at Izuku with burning intensity. This was his declaration of war, Midnight side. "Well then, let's begin with the first event, the obstacle race. All participants will race around the stadium. The track is 4 kilometers and filled with obstacles. The first 42 students to finish will advance to the next round. Ready. Start." The race began. Students surged forward, quirks activating immediately. Todoroki created a path of ice, freezing the ground and trapping dozens of students in place. Others used their quirks to fly, burrow, or blast through obstacles. Izuku ran. His massive frame covered ground in enormous strides, each footstep cracking the pavement from the force. He didn't need fancy maneuvers, he just powered through. The first obstacle, Robo Inferno. Giant robots, the same zero-pointers from the entrance exam, blocked the path. Most students hesitated, looking for ways around. Izuku charged straight at them. The lead robot raised its fist. Izuku pulled back his own fist, coating it in a massive vibration sphere. Gekishin! He punched the robot's leg. The shockwave traveled through its entire structure, shattering internal components. The robot toppled backward, crashing into its companions and creating a domino effect. Izuku leaped over the fallen robots and continued running. The second obstacle, the fall. A massive canyon with ropes stretched across. Students were carefully making their way across, using quirks for balance or flight. Izuku stopped at the edge. He looked down at the 100-foot drop, then at the distant other side. He backed up several paces. Then he sprinted forward and jumped. His massive body hurtled through the air, Baisento still strapped to his back. He wasn't going to make it. The gap was too wide for even his powerful legs. But halfway across, Izuku punched the air behind him. Gekishin! The recoil from the shockwave propelled him forward like a rocket. He cleared the gap easily, landing on the far side with an impact that cratered the ground. Behind him, students stared in disbelief. Did he just use his quirk as a jet engine? someone whispered. The third obstacle, the minefield. Landmines covered the final stretch. One wrong step would trigger an explosion. Students were carefully picking their way through. Using quirks to detect or disable the mines, Izuku looked at the minefield. Then he looked at his Basento. A plan formed. He unstrapped his weapon and held it horizontally at waist level. He channeled vibrations into the blade, creating a glowing bubble of energy around it. Then he started spinning. He spun in place, rotating his body while holding the Basento extended. The vibrations spread outward in a circle while creating a shockwave that detonated every mine within 20 feet of him. He walked forward slowly, continuously spinning, clearing a path through the minefield with controlled explosions. It was incredibly inefficient. Other students were making better time by finding safe paths, but it was also undeniably impressive. The crowd went wild. Izuku emerged from the minefield in first place, his Basento still spinning. He crossed the finish line a full minute before the second-place finisher, Todoroki, who'd ice-surfed his way through the obstacles. Present Mike's voice cracked with excitement. Midoriya Izuku takes first place with a dominating performance. That's the power of the student who defeated the USJ villain. Izuku stopped spinning and leaned on his Basento, catching his breath. Other students crossed the line in rapid succession. Bakugo, third, Ida, fourth, Tokoyami, fifth. 42 students qualified for the next round. Midnight stepped forward. Congratulations to our qualifiers. The next event is the Cavalry Battle. She explained the rules. Students would form teams of 2 to 4 people. Each team would have a rider on top who wore a headband with a point value based on their race placement. Teams would try to steal each other's headbands. The top 4 teams would advance. And here's the catch, Midnight continued with a wicked smile. The first place finisher's headband is worth 10 million points. Every eye in the stadium turned to Izuku. He stood calmly, seemingly unbothered by suddenly becoming everyone's primary target. But internally, he was analyzing. A cavalry battle meant teamwork. He needed strong teammates who could protect him while he focused on offense. Uraraka approached immediately. Midoriya, I want to be on your team. Me too, Ida added. Your mobility in the air and my speed on the ground would be an excellent combination. Others tried to approach, but Todoroki cut them off. Midoriya, I want to join your team. Why? Izuku asked. You could easily make your own team and target someone else's headband. Because I want to test myself against the strongest. Todoroki's eyes were intense. You said I should use my full power? This is my chance to prove I can. Izuku considered. Having Todoroki on his team meant incredible offensive potential, but it also meant one less powerful opponent to worry about. All right, you're in. But as they prepared, Izuku noticed something. Other students were avoiding him entirely. Teams were forming, but nobody else approached Izuku's group. They were scared, intimidated, convinced that trying to take his 10 million points was suicide, which meant his team would be swarmed. Every other team would gang up on them, hoping to claim the massive point prize. Listen up, Izuku told his team quietly. We're going to be everyone's target. The moment the battle starts, they'll come at us from all sides. Todoroki, I need you on left side defense. Use your ice to create barriers. Ida, you're our mobility. If we need to reposition quickly, you carry us. Uraraka, your right side defense. Float anyone who gets too close. What will you do? Todoroki asked. Izuku hefted his Basento. I'll be the offense. Anyone who gets through your defenses deals with me. The teams assembled. Izuku's team formed a square formation with him in the center, his Basento resting on his shoulder. Around them, every other team was positioning for an immediate assault. Midnight raised her hand. Begin! Chaos erupted. 6 teams charged Izuku's group simultaneously, converging from all directions. Hands reached out, trying to grab the 10 million point headband. Now! Izuku commanded. Todoroki slammed his right hand down, creating a massive ice wall that blocked the left side attackers. Uraraka touched 3 approaching students, making them float helplessly into the air. Ida activated his engine quirk, boosting their team sideways to avoid a pincer attack. But 2 teams broke through the defenses, hands reaching for Izuku's headband. Izuku swung his Basento in a wide horizontal arc. Naginata Rasetsu! The crescent shockwave swept across the battlefield, knocking back both teams without harming them, just enough force to send them tumbling away. Headbands flew from their riders, scattering across the arena floor. Uraraka, collect those, Izuku ordered. She floated down, grabbed the fallen headbands, and returned. Their team now had additional points as backup. The battle continued. Teams regrouped and attacked again, but Izuku's team had found their rhythm. Todoroki and Uraraka handled defense. Ida provided mobility, and Izuku was the unmovable center, his Bisento swinging in precise arcs that controlled the battlefield. Bakugo's team made a desperate charge. He'd teamed with Kirishima, Kaminari, and Sero, forming an aggressive rushing strategy. They blasted toward Izuku's team with explosive force. "Todoroki," Izuku called. "On it." Todoroki raised both hands. For the first time publicly, he used both sides of his quirk, ice and fire together. A massive glacier formed, channeling flames through its center to create a wall of steaming ice that blocked Bakugo's path. Bakugo crashed into it, his explosions melting through but not fast enough. By the time he broke through, Izuku's team had repositioned. "Damn it!" Bakugo roared. "Stop running!" "This isn't about fighting," Izuku replied calmly. "It's about strategy. You're thinking like a brawler, not a hero." That only made Bakugo angrier. He prepared another assault, but before he could attack, the buzzer sounded. Time was up. Midnight checked the results. The top 4 teams are Midoriya's team, Todoroki's rival team, Bakugo's team, and Monoma's team from Class 1B. Wait, Todoroki's rival team? But Todoroki was on Izuku's team. Midnight corrected herself. "Sorry, I mean Shinso's team." Moving on, we'll take a short break before the final event, one-on-one tournament battles. The bracket was revealed. Round 1, Izuku Midoriya versus Hitoshi Shinso, Shoto Todoroki versus Denki Kaminari, Tenya Ida versus Mei Hatsume, Katsuki Bakugo versus Ochako Uraraka, Fumikage Tokoyami versus Momo Yaoyorozu, Eijiro Kirishima versus Tetsu Tetsu, Ibara Shiozaki versus Juzo Honenuki, Naito Monoma versus Itsuka Kendo. The crowd was buzzing with excitement. This was what everyone had been waiting for, one-on-one combat where students could showcase their full abilities. Izuku studied the bracket. His first opponent was Shinso. He didn't know much about him, but the purple-haired student had performed well despite having no apparent offensive quirk. That meant his quirk was likely support or mental-based, dangerous in a different way. The first match began. Izuku Midoriya versus Hitoshi Shinso. They faced each other in the center of the arena, the crowd's roar deafening. Shinso looked small compared to Izuku's massive frame, a regular-sized teenager facing a mountain of muscle and power. "You're strong," Shinso said. "Everyone knows it. You're probably going to win this whole thing." Izuku nodded. "Maybe. You did well to make it this far." "Yeah, people always look down on me because my quirk isn't flashy. They say I can't be a hero, but you know what? I'm going to prove them wrong, starting with you. Then show me what you've got." Present Mick announced the start. "Begin." Izuku gripped his Basento and prepared to charge, but something felt wrong. His body wasn't responding. His legs wouldn't move. Shinso smiled. "Turn around and walk out of bounds." Izuku's body moved on its own. He turned, his massive frame lumbering toward the boundary line. His conscious mind was screaming, trying to stop, but his body wouldn't obey. "What's happening?" In the stands, Aizawa leaned forward. "Shinso's quirk, brainwashing. If you respond to him verbally, he can control you." Izuku was 3 steps from the boundary, 2 steps, 1 step. Then he stopped. His entire body was trembling. Veins bulged in his neck and arms. Sweat poured down his face. He was fighting the mental control with pure physical force, forcing his muscles to work against the brainwashing. "Impossible," Shinso whispered. "Nobody breaks my control like that." Izuku's hand, moving by millimeters, reached down and punched the ground beside him. The tiniest Gekishin, a miniature shockwave that barely cracked the concrete. But the vibration traveled up his arm, through his body, shaking his brain just enough to disrupt Shinso's control. Izuku gasped, control returning. He turned around slowly, his expression serious. "That's a dangerous quirk. In a real villain scenario, you could end fights without violence. You'd be an incredible underground hero." "Then why did you break free?" Shinso demanded. "Nobody's ever." "Because," Izuku said, taking a step forward, "a hero never gives up, no matter what." He charged. Shinso tried to talk, tried to trigger his quirk again, but Izuku wasn't listening. He closed the distance in seconds, his Basento sweeping low. Shinso jumped back, avoiding the strike. But he had no combat quirk, no way to defend against Izuku's overwhelming physical presence. Izuku stopped his Basento inches from Shinso's chest. "Yield. You fought well, but this match is over." Shinso stared at the blade, then at Izuku's face. He saw no mockery there, no condescension, just respect. "I yield," Shinso said quietly. The crowd erupted in cheers. Midnight announced Izuku's victory. As they walked off the field, Shinso spoke. "You said I could be an underground hero." "You could. Your quirk is perfect for stealth and infiltration. You don't need flashy power to save lives." "Thanks. And Midoriya? When you win this whole thing, because you're going to win, remember us regular people. Remember that not everyone has quirks like yours." "I won't forget," Izuku promised. The other matches progressed. Todoroki defeated Kaminari by freezing him solid before he could discharge electricity. Ida defeated Hatsume, who used the match as a demonstration for her support items and forfeited after showing them off. Bakugo fought Uraraka viciously, showing no mercy despite the crowd booing him for attacking a girl so aggressively. Uraraka fought with everything she had, using her quirk creatively to float debris and drop it on him. But ultimately, Bakugo's explosive power overwhelmed her defenses. The other matches concluded, setting up the quarterfinals. Izuku Midoriya versus Shoto Todoroki, Katsuki Bakugo versus Eijiro Kirishima, Fumikage Tokoyami versus Tenya Ida, Ibara Shiozaki versus Nato Monoma. The matchup everyone wanted to see, Midoriya versus Todoroki. The two strongest first years facing each other in direct combat. Izuku and Todoroki stood across from each other in the arena. The atmosphere was electric. This was the match that would define the festival. Two overwhelming powers colliding. "Midoriya," Todoroki said coldly, "I'm going to defeat you using only my right side. I refuse to use my father's power." "We talked about this," Izuku replied, his grip tightening on his Bicento. "You're handicapping yourself out of spite. It's my choice. Then make it a good one, because I'm not going to hold back." Present Mike's voice boomed. "This is it, folks. The battle between Class 1A's two strongest students. Begin." Todoroki immediately created a massive ice glacier, the same technique he'd used to freeze the robots during the entrance exam. The ice spread across the arena floor, racing toward Izuku in a frozen tsunami. Izuku planted his feet. He pulled back his fist, the white sphere of Gekishin forming and growing until it was blindingly bright. Keishin. He punched forward. Crack. The air shattered. The shockwave was so powerful it was visible, a cone of distorted space that slammed into the advancing ice. The glacier exploded into powder, the vibrations breaking molecular bonds and reducing solid ice to harmless snow. The shockwave continued past the destroyed ice, heading straight for Todoroki. Todoroki raised an ice wall. The shockwave shattered it. He created another. It shattered too. He was forced to continuously create walls, each one breaking under the assault, backpedaling across the arena as Izuku's single punch pushed him back. The crowd was screaming. The shockwave was so powerful it had reached the stands, rattling the walls of the stadium. When the dust settled, Todoroki was breathing heavily. Ice covered half his body, frost forming from the overuse of his right side. His movements were slowing. "You're reaching your limit," Izuku called out. "Use your fire. Warm yourself up." "No," Todoroki created another glacier. "I won't." Izuku charged through it, his Bicento swinging. "Naginata Resetsu!" The shockwave cut through the ice. Todoroki barely dodged, the crescent of force missing him by inches and carving a trench in the arena wall. They clashed directly. Todoroki created ice gauntlets around his arms, trying to block Izuku's Bicento. But the vibrations traveled through the ice, cracking it from the inside. Each clash shattered Todoroki's defenses. "Why are you so stubborn?" Izuku roared, pressing the attack. "You have the power to win this. Use it." "I can't." Todoroki's voice cracked. "If I use his power, I become like him. I become the tool he always wanted." "You're not a tool." Izuku's shout echoed across the silent stadium. "You're Shoto Todoroki. Your power. Your choices, not your father's." He swung his Bicento in a wide arc, forcing Todoroki to block. At the moment of impact, Izuku channeled a Gekishin through the weapon directly into Todoroki's ice barrier. The ice exploded. Todoroki was thrown backward, sliding across the ground. His right side was completely frozen. He'd hit his limit. He couldn't create more ice. He couldn't defend himself. He was losing. In the stands, Endeavor, the number 2 hero and Todoroki's father, was standing, flames roaring around him. "Use your left side, stop being stubborn!" Todoroki looked up at his father, then at Izuku, who was walking toward him slowly, Bicento raised. "If you don't use your fire," Izuku said quietly, "you're going to lose. And then what? You'll go through your entire hero career handicapped? What happens when you face a villain and you could beat with your full power, but you don't, and someone dies? Can you live with that? Tears were streaming down Todoroki's face. I don't know. Then figure it out. Izuku raised his Basento high, but figure it out now. He brought the weapon down in a massive overhead swing, the blade coated in his strongest Gekishin yet. Todoroki raised his left arm instinctively. Flames erupted. The fire met the shockwave. Energy collided in a massive explosion that shook the entire stadium. The concrete beneath them cracked. Windows shattered. The heat was so intense that spectators in the front rows had to shield their faces. When the smoke cleared, Todoroki was standing. His left side was ablaze, flames dancing along his arm and shoulder. His right side was covered in ice. Both quirks working together, balancing each other. He looked at his left hand with wonder and horror. I used it. Yeah, Izuku said with a slight smile. You did. Now show me what you can really do. Todoroki's expression hardened. Thank you, Midoriya, for pushing me. Now, I'm going to defeat you with everything I have. He raised both arms, ice and fire mixed, creating a massive tornado of elemental fury. The attack was beautiful and terrifying, a perfect spiral of opposing forces working in harmony. Izuku planted his Bisento in the ground. He spread his arms wide, white energy gathering around both fists. This would be his strongest attack yet, the one he'd been developing but never used. Ikki Tosen! He punched forward with both fists simultaneously. The twin Gekishin merged into a single colossal shockwave, the air fracturing in a web of cracks that spread across the entire arena. The shockwave was so powerful it was opaque, a wall of pure vibrational force. It met Todoroki's tornado head-on. The collision was apocalyptic. The entire stadium shook. Cracks spread through the arena floor. The walls buckled. Spectators were thrown from their seats by the shockwave. Microphones and cameras exploded from the pressure. When the dust finally settled, both fighters were still standing. Barely, Todoroki was on his knees, his quirks exhausted. He'd given everything, every ounce of ice, every flame he could produce, and it still wasn't enough. Izuku was standing, but his arms were hanging limp, blood dripping from his hands. His Bisento was embedded in the concrete beside him. He'd pushed past his limits too. Midnight raised her hand, about to call the match. Todoroki collapsed, unconscious, completely spent. Midoriya wins! Present Mix screamed. What a match! Both fighters gave everything, but Midoriya advances to the semifinals. The crowd went absolutely insane. That had been the greatest match in sports festival history. Two students displaying professional-level power, pushing each other to their absolute limits. Medical robots rushed onto the field. Recovery Girl was already running toward them, her cane clicking against the broken concrete. Izuku walked over to where Todoroki lay unconscious. Despite his exhaustion, he knelt beside his fallen opponent and placed a massive hand on his shoulder. You did good, he whispered. Your power is yours now. Remember that. The semifinals were brutal. Izuku faced Tokoyami, whose Dark Shadow quirk was incredibly powerful in the arena's indoor lighting. The Shadow Beast was fast, strong, and could attack from multiple angles, but Izuku had a counter. Shima Yurashi! He grabbed the air and tilted the entire arena, throwing off Tokoyami's balance. While the students struggled to adapt, Izuku charged forward and delivered a single Gekishin punch that created enough light from the shockwave to weaken Dark Shadow significantly. The match ended quickly after that. The other semifinal was Bakugo versus Ida. Despite Ida's incredible speed, Bakugo's explosions created unpredictable patterns that Ida couldn't dodge. Bakugo advanced to the finals. The final match. Izuku Midoriya versus Katsuki Bakugo. The two childhood rivals faced each other. The massive Izuku with his Basento, the smaller but ferocious Bakugo with his gauntlets primed for maximum explosion. This is it, Bakugo said, his voice shaking with emotion. This is where I prove I'm not inferior, that I can beat you. You've already proven your strength, Izuku replied. Making it this far against these opponents shows how skilled you are. Shut up, Bakugo roared. Stop patronizing me. Stop acting like you're above me. Fight me seriously. I always fight seriously. Then come on. Present Mike's voice rang out. The final match, Midoriya versus Bakugo, the strongest versus the most aggressive. Begin. Bakugo launched himself forward with explosive force, both palms aimed at Izuku's chest. His gauntlets activated, storing the maximum amount of nitroglycerin sweat for a devastating blast. Izuku swung his Bisento. Naginata Rasetsu. The shockwave caught Bakugo mid-flight, throwing him off course. He corrected with smaller explosions, twisting through the air like a fighter jet. They clashed in the center of the arena. Explosions versus vibrations, raw power versus refined technique. Each collision sent shockwaves through the stadium. Bakugo was faster, more agile, constantly moving and attacking from different angles. But Izuku was stronger, more durable, able to tank hits that would incapacitate others. "Why won't you go down?" Bakugo screamed, unleashing a barrage of explosions. "Because I'm a hero," Izuku replied, blocking with his Bisento. "Heroes don't fall easily." Bakugo fired his gauntlet-stored blast. The explosion was massive, comparable to a military-grade explosive. The arena floor cracked, the air filled with smoke and fire. When it cleared, Izuku was still standing. His clothes were singed, his skin burned, but he was standing. My turn. He punched the air in front of him. Gekishin! The shockwave was precise, controlled, aimed directly at Bakugo. It slammed into him like an invisible wall, throwing him backward across the arena. He crashed into the far wall, his body creating a crater in the concrete. Bakugo struggled to stand. His arms were shaking. He'd used everything, every technique, every explosion, every ounce of strength. It wasn't enough. Izuku walked forward slowly. "You fought well, better than I expected. You've grown." "Don't," Bakugo coughed, blood on his lips. "Don't you dare." "But this match is over." Izuku raised his Bisento. Bakugo tried to move, tried to dodge, but his body wouldn't respond. He was spent. The blade stopped inches from Bakugo's neck. "Yield," Izuku said quietly. Bakugo stared at him with eyes full of rage, humiliation, and something else. Tears. He was crying. His voice cracked. "I yield." Midnight announced the result. Midoriya wins. He's the champion of the UA Sports Festival. The crowd erupted. Confetti fell from the sky. Present Mike was screaming himself hoarse, but Izuku wasn't celebrating. He was looking at Bakugo, at the broken expression on his rival's face, at the tears streaming down his cheeks. He extended his hand. "You did well." Bakugo stared at the offered hand. For a long moment, he didn't move. Then, slowly, he reached up and took it. Izuku pulled him to his feet. They stood together in the center of the ruined arena, the strongest and the most aggressive, the winner and the loser, bound by shared history and rivalry. "Next time," Bakugo said quietly, "next time I'll beat you." "I look forward to it," Izuku replied with a slight smile. The award ceremony was held at sunset. All Might, in his muscular form, stood on the podium with 3 medals. Third place, Tokoyami and Todoroki, tied. Second place, Bakugo. First place, Izuku. Young Midoriya. All Might boomed, placing the gold medal around Izuku's neck. "You've shown the world what it means to be a hero. Your strength, your courage, your heart. You are the future of hero society." The crowd chanted Izuku's name. Cameras flashed. Reporters were already writing headlines. "The strongest student in UA history. Izuku Midoriya, the next symbol of peace. Tremor Hero dominates sports festival." But Izuku wasn't thinking about fame or recognition. He was looking at his classmates. At Todoroki, who'd finally accepted his full power. At Bakugo, who'd given everything despite knowing he'd lose. At Uraraka and Ida and all the others who'd fought so hard. His family. All of them. Gura Gura. Izuku's deep laugh echoed across the stadium. "This is just the beginning." He raised his Bisento high, the golden medal glinting in the setting sun. The symbol of peace stood beside him, smiling with genuine pride. The next generation was here. And at its head stood Izuku Midoriya, the boy with the power to shake the world and the heart to protect everyone on it. This was his hero academia, and this was only the start. The world wouldn't let him rest. Within hours of the sports festival's conclusion, Izuku's face was everywhere. News broadcasts replayed his fights on loop, the Gekishin that destroyed the Nomu, the Kaishin that shattered Todoroki's ultimate attack, the domination of Bakugo in the finals. Social media exploded with debates, theories, worship, and fear. Is he too powerful? The next symbol of peace? What if he becomes a villain? Izuku ignored it all. He sat in his dorm room, his Bisento propped against the wall, his gold medal hanging from its blade. His hands were wrapped in bandages. Recovery Girl had healed the major damage, but the repeated use of Gekishin had fractured the bones in his knuckles. They'd heal, but slowly, a knock at his door. "Come in." All Might entered, deflated form, looking somehow smaller in the massive doorframe designed for Izuku's size. He held a folder marked with the Hero Commission's seal. "Young Midoriya, we need to talk." Izuku gestured to the reinforced chair. All Might sat, his skeletal fingers drumming against the folder. "The Commission is concerned. Your performance at the sports festival was unprecedented. You demonstrated power levels that rival professional heroes. Some are calling you the strongest student in UA history. I just did what I trained to do. I know, but the world doesn't see it that way." All Might opened the folder. Inside were photographs, surveillance images of known villains watching the festival broadcasts. The League of Villains saw you destroy their Nomu. Now they've seen you dominate Japan's best hero students. Shigaraki Tomura is obsessed with you. Izuku's eyes narrowed. "Let him come. I'll end him the same way I ended his monster." "That's what worries me." All Might leaned forward. "You're strong, young Midoriya, possibly the strongest student I've ever seen, but strength alone doesn't make a hero. If you become too focused on power, too reliant on force, I won't become a villain, All Might." Izuku's voice was firm. "My mother raised me to protect people. That's all I've ever wanted to do. The power is just a tool." "I know. I believe that." All Might smiled weakly, but others don't. "The Commission is debating whether to place restrictions on you, limit your quirk usage, assign handlers." "No," the word echoed in the small room. Outside, the window rattled slightly. All Might raised his hands. "I'm not saying I agree with them. I'm warning you. There are people in power who fear what you represent. A teenage boy with the ability to level cities. They want control. They can't control me." Izuku stood, his massive frame filling the room. "I'm not a weapon to be aimed. I'm a hero, and if they try to cage me, then you'll make enemies of the very people you're trying to protect." All Might stood as well, meeting Izuku's gaze. "That's the burden of overwhelming power, young man. People fear what they can't control. You need to be smarter than them. Show restraint, show wisdom, prove you're more than just raw strength." Izuku was silent for a long moment, then he nodded slowly. "I understand, but if villains come for my family, for my classmates, I won't hold back, commission or no commission. I wouldn't expect anything less." All Might placed a hand on Izuku's shoulder. His hand barely reached. "Just remember, being the strongest isn't the same as being the greatest. The symbol of peace isn't about power. It's about the smile that tells everyone they're safe." He left. Izuku sat back down, staring at his bandaged hands. The strongest isn't the same as the greatest. He'd think about that later. For now, he needed to heal. Across the city, in a bar hidden behind layers of misdirection and false walls, the League of Villains watched the same footage for the 100th time. Shigaraki Tomura sat at the bar, scratching his neck raw, his eyes locked on the screen. The replay showed Izuku's final punch against Bakugo, the air cracking, the shockwave visible, the overwhelming force that ended the match instantly. "He destroyed the Nomu," Shigaraki whispered. "Our perfect anti-All Might weapon. He destroyed it like it was nothing." Kurogiri polished a glass, his misty form shifting. "The boy is extraordinarily powerful. Perhaps we should reconsider our approach. Direct confrontation seems inadvisable." "No!" Shigaraki slammed his hand on the bar, 5 fingers splayed. The wood beneath his palm crumbled to dust. "We can't let him exist. He's everything I hate, strong, praised, loved by everyone. He's another All Might, another symbol that tells the world they don't need to be afraid." "Then what do you propose?" "We break him." Shigaraki's smile was visible beneath the hand covering his face. "We take what he loves. We hurt his family. We make him watch as everything crumbles. Then when he's weak and broken, we kill him." A voice spoke from the shadows, deep, ancient, carrying weight that made even Shigaraki pause. "An interesting strategy, Tomura, but short-sighted." The television screen flickered. Static filled it, then resolved into a featureless face, or rather, a mask. All for One, the greatest villain in history, speaking from his hidden fortress. "Master!" Shigaraki straightened immediately. "I didn't know you were watching." "I'm always watching, and I've been very interested in this Midoriya boy." The mask tilted slightly. "His quirk is fascinating, tremor, the ability to generate vibrations through any medium. Simple in concept, but he's developed it into something extraordinary. Tell me, Tomura, do you know what makes his power so dangerous?" "Because he's strong? Because his quirk has no inherent weakness." All for One's voice carried a hint of genuine interest. Most quirks have counters. Counters can be burned, ice can be melted. Even One for All requires a physical body that can be damaged. But vibrations, they propagate through everything. Air, water, solid matter, even the human body itself. There's no defense that can fully stop them. Kurogiri paused his polishing. Then how do we defeat him? We don't. All for One laughed, a sound like grinding stone. We recruit him. Shigaraki's scratching intensified. What? No, he'd never join us. He's a hero. Every hero has a breaking point, Tamura. Even the symbol of peace fell from grace. We simply need to find young Midoriya's weakness and exploit it. But first, we need more data. We need to see him fight. Really fight. Against an opponent who can push him to his limits. The training camp, Kurogiri suggested. UA takes their first years to a remote facility for intensive training. Perfect isolation. Multiple targets. Ideal conditions for an ambush. Excellent. All for One's mask smiled, somehow, impossibly. Tamura, I'm giving you enhanced resources for this operation. Vanguard Action Squad, the best villains I can provide. Your objective is twofold. Capture young Bakugo as planned, and test Midoriya's absolute limits. I want to know exactly how powerful he is. And if he kills our people, then they were weak. But I suspect you'll find that even the strongest can be overwhelmed with the right strategy. Go, Tamura. Show the world that even their newest symbol can bleed. The screen went dark. Shigaraki stood slowly, his hands trembling with anticipation. Kurogiri, gather the vanguard. We're going hunting. 2 weeks passed. Class 1A prepared for their summer training camp with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. After the sports festival, everyone understood the gap between them and Izuku. But rather than discouragement, it sparked fierce determination. Bakugo trained in explosive fury, pushing his quirk to generate larger, faster detonations. Todoroki practiced combining his ice and fire, creating techniques that merged both elements. Ida worked on his speed, trying to break past his current limits. Even Uraraka, whose quirk seemed simple, developed new applications, learning to float herself for extended periods, using her zero gravity in creative ways. Izuku trained differently. He stood in Training Ground Gamma, a facility designed for urban combat with its maze of pipes and structures, and focused on control, not power. He had plenty of power, but All Might's words echoed in his mind. Being the strongest isn't the same as being the greatest. He needed precision. He needed to be able to use his full strength without destroying everything around him. Gekishin, he whispered. His fist moved slowly, almost gently. The white sphere formed around his knuckles. Smaller this time, compressed to the size of a marble. He punched forward. The shockwave traveled in a perfectly straight line no wider than his arm. It struck a concrete pillar 50 meters away. The pillar cracked precisely in half, the top sliding off to crash to the ground. The pillars on either side stood untouched, better, but not perfect. He tried again and again and again. Hours passed, his knuckles split open, blood ran down his hands. He ignored it. Midoriya! The bus is leaving in 10 minutes. Kirishima's voice echoed across the training ground. Izuku wiped the blood on his pants and grabbed his Bicento. Time to go. The bus ride was loud. Kaminari and Mineta had been expelled. Kaminari and Sero were arguing about something stupid. Ashido was showing everyone pictures on her phone. Jiro had her earphone jacks plugged into her music player, bobbing her head. Izuku sat in the back, his seat reinforced to handle his weight. Uraraka sat across from him, smiling nervously. Are you excited? I heard the training camp is super intense. We'll be using our quirks all day, every day, pushing past our limits. Yeah, should be good training. You're always training though. Don't you ever just relax? Izuku considered this. When was the last time he'd relaxed? Before his quirk manifested? Before he understood what his power meant? I can't afford to relax. Too many people depending on me. But that's exactly why you should. Uraraka leaned forward. If you burn yourself out now, how will you protect people later? Even All Might takes breaks. All Might also lost his power fighting All for One. If he'd been stronger, maybe he wouldn't have been injured. Maybe nothing. Nothing. Uraraka's voice was sharp, surprising him. Stop putting that pressure on yourself. You're 15. You already defeated a monster designed to kill the #1 hero. You won the sports festival. You saved all of us at the USJ. What more do you want from yourself? The bus fell silent. Everyone was listening now. Izuku met her gaze. I want to be strong enough that nobody I love ever dies. The raw honesty in his voice cut through the chatter. Uraraka's eyes widened. Around them, students shifted uncomfortably. Bakugo spoke up from several seats ahead, not turning around. "That's impossible, you idiot. People die. It's what they do. You can't stop it. Watch me." The bus arrived at the training camp location, a dense forest in a mountain range far from civilization. Two pro heroes greeted them at the entrance, Pixie Bob and Mandalay, the wild pussycats. Behind them, a small boy with a horn-themed hat glared at everyone with undisguised hostility. "Welcome, future heroes." Pixie Bob struck a pose. "You have 3 hours to reach the facility at the base of the mountain, and here's the fun part. You'll be going through our beast's forest. It's filled with earth monsters that I create with my quirk. Think of it as a practical exam." 3 hours? Kaminari groaned. "That's..." The ground beneath the bus tilted. Pixie Bob's quirk activated, creating a landslide that sent all the students tumbling down into the forest. Izuku grabbed Uraraka mid-fall, cushioning her landing with his body. They hit the ground hard, dirt and rocks scattering. "Everyone okay?" Ida called out, adjusting his glasses. "Define okay," Kaminari muttered, spitting out leaves. A roar echoed through the trees. The earth rumbled. A massive creature made of rock and soil emerged, vaguely feline in shape, 20 feet tall, with claws like boulders. "Scatter!" Todoroki shouted. The students dispersed. The earth beast charged, moving surprisingly fast for something so massive. Izuku stepped forward. "Everyone behind me." "Midoriya, we should work together," Ida started. "No time. It's coming now." The beast lunged. Izuku didn't use his Basento. He pulled back his fist and punched. Gekishin. Crack. The air shattered. The shockwave hit the earth beast head-on, vibrating through its entire structure. The compressed soil and rock couldn't maintain cohesion under the assault. The beast exploded into harmless dirt, raining down across the forest floor. Silence. Or, Kirishima said weakly, Midoriya could just one-shot everything. That works too. More earth beasts appeared, dozens of them, surrounding the students from all directions. They varied in size and shape. Some quadrupedal, some bipedal, some serpentine, all hostile. "There's too many." Ashido backed up. "Even Midoriya can't." "Yes, I can." Izuku planted his Bisento in the ground. He spread his arms wide, white energy forming around both fists. "Everyone get down." The students dropped. Izuku punched both fists toward the ground, not hitting it, but sending the shockwave into the earth itself. "Shima Yurashi!" The entire forest floor tilted. Trees leaned at impossible angles. Gravity seemed to shift sideways. The earth beasts lost their footing, tumbling and sliding down the now 45-degree slope. Izuku released his grip. The forest settled back to normal with a groan of stressed wood and stone. The earth beasts were scattered, broken, neutralized. "Path's clear," Izuku said simply. "Let's move." The students stared at him, then at each other. Then they started walking. Behind them, watching from the mountaintop, Pixie Bob's jaw was hanging open. Did that boy just tilt the entire forest? His quirk assessment rated him at disaster level, Mandalay said quietly. "I'm starting to understand why." They reached the facility in 40 minutes. The pussycats were impressed. Most classes took the full 3 hours. But with Izuku clearing obstacles like a human earthquake, the path had been easy. That night, the class gathered for dinner. The small boy with the horn hat, Kota, Mandalay's nephew, refused to interact with anyone, especially the fake heroes trying to be friendly. Izuku found him later, sitting alone on a cliff overlooking the forest. "Go away," Kota said without turning around. "Mind if I sit?" "Yes." Izuku sat anyway, his massive frame making the cliff edge seem smaller. They sat in silence for several minutes. "You don't want to be a hero," Izuku finally said. "Not a question. Heroes are stupid. They fight and die for people who don't even care. My parents were heroes. They died fighting a villain. For what? So people could feel safe for 5 minutes? So the news could call them brave? They're gone, dead, and nothing changed." "You're right." Kota turned to look at him, surprised. "Heroes do die," Izuku continued, "and often for people who don't appreciate it. The world is cruel that way, but they do it anyway because someone has to. Because if nobody stands up, then evil wins." "That's stupid." "Maybe. But it's also necessary." Izuku stood, his Bisento glinting in the moonlight. "Your parents died protecting others. That death had meaning, even if it hurts. They saved lives. Those lives continued. Some of those people might become heroes themselves. The cycle continues." That's how we build a better world, one sacrifice at a time. I still think it's stupid. That's okay, you don't have to be a hero, but don't disrespect those who choose to be. Izuku walked away, leaving Kota alone with his thoughts. The training began the next morning. Each student worked with the Pussycats to develop their quirks beyond current limits. Bakugo submerged his hands in boiling water to increase his sweat production. Todoroki alternated between extreme temperatures. Ida ran until his engines overheated. Izuku's training was different. Your quirk is already incredibly powerful, Pixie Bob explained. You don't need more raw strength, you need versatility. Right now you have about 5 or 6 signature moves. We're going to develop 20 more. They worked on precision, creating shockwaves that could target specific points without collateral damage. Developing defensive techniques, using vibrations to create barriers of compressed air. Offensive variations, different frequencies for different materials, adjusting the Gekishin to be lethal or non-lethal. Izuku absorbed it all. His body was pushed to exhaustion daily. His hands bled from overuse, but he grew stronger, more skilled, more complete. 3 days into training, the League of Villains attacked. It was night. Most students were asleep in their cabins. A few were still awake. Izuku, sitting outside his cabin, practicing a new technique. Todoroki, unable to sleep, walking the grounds. Bakugo, too angry about his slow progress, to rest. The forest exploded. Blue flames erupted from nowhere, engulfing trees and cabins. A villain with burns covering his body stepped out of the fire, grinning. Hey there, hero students. Remember me? I'm Dabi, and we're here too. Izuku moved. He covered the distance in 2 strides, his Bicento already swinging. Dabi barely dodged, the blade passing inches from his face. Whoa, jumpy much? Dabi backpedaled, flames erupting from his hands. I was in the middle of my villain monologue. Don't care. Izuku swung again. Naginata Rasetsu. The crescent shockwave carved through the flaming trees like they were paper. Dabi rolled aside, cursing. Fine, have it your way. He unleashed a torrent of blue fire, hot enough to melt steel. Izuku punched through it. The Gekishin dispersed the flames, creating a path directly to Dabi. His fist caught the villain in the chest, sending him flying backward into a tree with bone-breaking force. But more villains were appearing. A man with a massive metal jaw, Moonfish, emerged from the shadows, his teeth extending into blades. A girl with blonde hair and a crazed expression, Toga, giggled as she brandished knives. A massive, muscular villain with dark skin and white hair, Muscular, cracked his knuckles. Where is he? Muscular bellowed. Where's the famous tremor hero? I came here to fight the strongest. You found him, Izuku said calmly, placing himself between the villains and his classmates' cabins. You made a mistake coming here. Muscular's grin widened. I love fighting strong opponents. They called me in special for this. Said there was a kid who could shake the world. Let's see if you can shake me. His quirk activated. Muscle fibers burst from his skin, layering over his body like armor. He grew larger, stronger, his frame expanding until he matched Izuku's size. I'm Goto Imasuji, but everyone calls me Muscular. My quirk lets me augment my muscle fibers. The more I layer, the stronger I get. And kid, I've got dozens of layers. He charged, his fist came in like a cannonball. Izuku blocked with his Bicento, the impact creating a shockwave that shattered windows in the nearby cabins. Muscular laughed and punched again and again. Each strike was faster and harder than the last. Izuku was being pushed back. Come on, Muscular roared. Is that all the famous tremor hero can do? Block! No, Izuku said quietly. Then block. I was analyzing you. He dropped his Bicento and caught Muscular's next punch with his bare hand. White energy erupted around his grip. Your quirk augments muscle fibers, but muscles are just tissue, and tissue vibrates. He channeled Gekishin directly into Muscular's arm. The villain's eyes widened, his muscle layers began to shake, the fibers vibrating at frequencies that tore them apart from the inside. Blood vessels burst, bone cracked. Muscular screamed and pulled back, his arm hanging useless. What? How? My quirk bypasses external defenses, Izuku explained. I don't need to break through your armor, I just vibrate what's underneath it. He punched forward. Gekishin. The shockwave hit Muscular center mass. This time it traveled through his body, shaking organs and breaking bones. The villain coughed blood, his muscle armor failing as his internal structure collapsed. But Muscular wasn't done. He roared and forced more muscle fibers to grow, pushing through the pain. His quirk was regenerating the damage almost as fast as Izuku could cause it. "I'm not like the Nomu," Muscular snarled. "I'm alive. I feel pain and I love it. Hit me harder. Make me feel it." Izuku's expression hardened. This villain was a problem. Regeneration plus incredible durability meant he could fight for hours, and every minute was a minute the other villains had to hurt students. Time to end this. Izuku planted his feet. He pulled back both fists, white spheres forming around them, but this time, he compressed the energy even further, making the spheres dense and brilliant. Last chance to surrender. Never! Muscular charged, his full bulk aimed at crushing Izuku. Then die like a villain. Izuku's voice was cold. Ikitusen. He punched forward with both fists. Crack. Crack. Twin Gikishin merged into a single colossal shockwave. The air didn't just fracture, it shattered completely, creating a visible cone of destruction that slammed into Muscular's charge. The villain's muscle fibers couldn't withstand it. They tore apart layer by layer, each one disintegrating under the vibrational assault. His bones cracked, his organs ruptured, his very cells were shaken to pieces. Muscular was thrown backward with incredible force. He crashed through 3 trees before embedding himself in a boulder, the stone cracking around his broken body. He didn't get up. Izuku walked toward him slowly, his Bicento retrieved. Around them, the forest was in chaos. He could hear fighting, Todoroki's ice clashing with Dabi's flames, Bakugo's explosions, the Pussycats engaging other villains, but his focus was on Muscular. The villain was still alive, barely. His chest rose and fell in ragged breaths. "You're strong," Muscular wheezed, blood bubbling from his lips. "Stronger than anyone I've fought. I tried to give you a chance to surrender. Wouldn't have been fun." Muscular's eye focused on Izuku with something like respect. "You're the real deal, kid. The world's gonna fear you or love you. Nothing in between." His eye closed. He passed out. Izuku turned away. One villain down. But how many more were there? A scream cut through the night. A child's scream. Kota. Izuku ran, his massive frame crashing through the underbrush. He found Kota being cornered by Moonfish, the villain's blade teeth extending to impale the terrified child. "No!" Izuku arrived like a meteor, his Bicento swinging in a defensive arc. The blade cut through Moonfish's teeth like they were made of paper. The villain stumbled back, shocked. Izuku placed himself between the villain and Kota, his presence overwhelming. "You want to hurt a child?" Izuku's voice dropped to something primal. "Then you deal with me first." Moonfish giggled, a high-pitched sound. "Flesh, strong flesh, want to cut, want to taste." His teeth launched forward. Dozens of bladed appendages aimed at Izuku from every angle. Izuku spun his Bicento in a complete circle, the blade coated in vibrational energy. "Naginata Rasetsu!" The crescent shockwave expanded in a full sphere, cutting through every blade simultaneously. Moonfish's quirk faltered, his teeth severed and useless. "My turn." Izuku charged. His fist caught Moonfish in the jaw with a concentrated Gekishin. The villain's head snapped back, his entire body going limp. He crumpled to the ground, unconscious before he hit the dirt. Izuku turned to Kota. The boy was staring at him with wide, terrified eyes. "You saved me." That's what heroes do. Izuku knelt down to Kota's level. Even kneeling, he was still taller than the child. "Are you hurt?" "No, I was scared. I thought I was going to die. And then you came and you just..." Tears streamed down Kota's face. "You're just like my parents. You saved me even though I said heroes were stupid." "Your parents weren't stupid," Izuku said gently. "They were brave. And you're brave too, for surviving this." He picked up Kota, cradling the boy against his chest. "Stay with me. I'll protect you." But as he turned to head back to the facility, a swirling black portal opened in front of him. Kurogiri stepped through. "Izuku Midoriya, I'm afraid we can't let you interfere further." More portals opened. Villains poured through. The remaining members of the Vanguard Action Squad. They surrounded Izuku, weapons drawn, quirks activated. "Put the child down," Kurogiri said calmly. "This doesn't concern him. We're here for you." "Then you're going to be disappointed," Izuku replied, setting Kota down gently behind him. "Because I'm not going anywhere." "We thought you might say that." Kurogiri's mist shifted. "That's why we brought insurance." Another portal opened. Through it, Izuku saw his classmates, Uraraka, Jiro, Yaoyorozu, being restrained by villains. Dabi held flames dangerously close to Uraraka's face. "Come with us peacefully," Kurogiri continued, "or we hurt them. Your choice." Izuku's hands tightened on his Basento. The ground beneath his feet began to crack from the pressure of barely contained power. Let them go. Now. That's not how hostages work, hero. Dabi's grin was manic. You surrender. We take you to meet the boss. Everyone lives. You fight, and your little girlfriend here learns what cremation feels like. Rage boiled in Izuku's chest. Pure, incandescent fury that made the air around him shimmer. These villains had attacked his home, hurt his classmates, threatened his family. They would pay. But not now. Not with hostages. Fine, Izuku said through clenched teeth. I'll go with you. But if you hurt any of them, then you'll what? Kill us? Shigaraki Tomura stepped through the portal, his hand-covered face twisted in a smile. You're a hero. Heroes don't kill. That's what makes you weak. A portal opened beneath Izuku's feet. He fell through, still holding Koda. The portal closed behind him before anyone could react. He landed in a dark warehouse. Dozens of villains surrounded him. In the center, sitting on a throne made of compressed metal, was All For One himself, though his face was still hidden behind a mask. Welcome, young Midoriya, the ancient villain said. We have much to discuss. But Izuku wasn't looking at All For One. He was looking at the corner of the warehouse, where his classmates were being held. And in another corner, chained and gagged, was Bakugo. The League had taken 2 prizes, Bakugo to turn him into a villain, and Izuku to test his limits. But they'd made a critical error. They'd brought the strongest man in the world into their lair, and they'd given him a reason to hold nothing back. Izuku set Koda down gently. Close your eyes. Don't open them until I tell you. The boy nodded, squeezing his eyes shut. Izuku turned to face All For One, his Basento held loosely at his side. You made a mistake. Did I? All For One's voice carried amusement. I have dozens of villains here, hostages, control over the situation, and you're just one boy, exhausted from fighting Muscular and the others. How exactly have I made a mistake? Izuku's expression was calm, almost serene. The rage was still there, burning beneath the surface, but controlled, focused. You think I'm just one boy, but I'm the boy who killed your Nomu. I'm the boy who can shake the world, and you just gave me permission to show you exactly what that means. He planted his Bisento in the ground, both fists pulled back, white spheres forming and growing larger than before. The air around him began to fracture. The ground cracked. Every villain in the warehouse took an instinctive step backward. All For One leaned forward in his throne. Interesting. You're actually going to... Kaishin! Izuku punched both fists toward the ground, not hitting it, but directing the shockwave into the earth beneath the warehouse. Crack. The entire building shook. No, the entire city block shook. The shockwave traveled through the ground, creating a localized earthquake that rattled every structure within a mile radius. The warehouse floor buckled and heaved, throwing villains off their feet. In the chaos, Izuku moved. He was across the warehouse in 3 strides, his massive frame covering ground impossibly fast. His fist caught the first villain, a man with metal skin, and sent him flying through the warehouse wall. The second villain tried to activate a binding quirk. Izuku's backhand shattered his jaw before he could complete the gesture. Third villain. Fourth. Fifth, they fell like wheat before a scythe. Izuku's Basento sang through the air, each swing calculated to incapacitate without killing. Bones broke, bodies flew. Villains who'd terrorized civilians for years found themselves helpless against overwhelming force. Stop him, Shigaraki shrieked. Kurogiri, open a portal. Dabi, burn him. Dabi unleashed a torrent of blue flames. Izuku punched through it, the Gekishin dispersing the fire before it could reach him. He grabbed Dabi by the throat and threw him across the warehouse, the villain crashing into a support beam hard enough to crack the concrete. Kurogiri tried to open a portal beneath Izuku, but the Basento came down, stabbing through the mist villain's tangible core. Kurogiri screamed and dissipated, his portal quirk temporarily disabled. 20 villains down. 30. 40. Izuku was a force of nature, unstoppable, relentless. His family was here, his brother Bakugo, his classmates, a child who needed protecting. Nothing would stop him from saving them. All For One stood from his throne. Enough. His voice carried power, literally. Quirks activated simultaneously. Air pressure blasted toward Izuku from multiple directions. Kinetic force tried to pin him down. Hardening quirks reinforced All For One's body to diamond-level durability. Izuku met the attack head-on. He swung his Bisento in a complete horizontal arc, the blade coated in his most powerful Naginata Rasetsu yet. The crescent shockwave cut through All for One's combined quirk assault, dispersing the attacks like they were made of paper. Then Izuku charged. His Bisento clashed with All for One's enhanced arm. The impact created a shockwave that shattered every remaining window in the warehouse. The two titans pushed against each other, neither giving ground. "You're strong," All for One admitted, his mask cracking slightly from the pressure. "Stronger than I expected. But you're still just a child with one quirk. I have hundreds. Can you truly defeat that? Watch me." Izuku pulled back his fist. White energy gathered, compressed, refined into a sphere so dense it looked solid. This was his Gekishin at maximum power, channeled through every lesson he'd learned, every technique he'd developed. Gekishin! He punched, crack. The air shattered. Reality itself seemed to break around his fist. The shockwave was so powerful it was visible. A cone of pure vibrational force that slammed into All for One's enhanced body. The ancient villain was thrown backward. He crashed through his throne, through the warehouse wall, through the building across the street. His body carved a trench through concrete and steel before finally stopping 3 blocks away. Izuku didn't wait. He grabbed Bakugo's chains and tore them apart like they were made of tissue paper. He gathered his classmates, making sure none were seriously injured. He picked up Kota, who'd kept his eyes closed the entire time. "You can open them now. We're leaving." But before they could escape, All for One returned. He floated through the massive hole in the warehouse wall, his body regenerating from the damage. Blood dripped from his mask, but he was smiling. "Magnificent. You live up to your reputation, young Midoriya, but this fight is far from over. I haven't even shown you my true power yet." Multiple quirks activated at once. The warehouse filled with attacks, air cannons, fire streams, lightning bolts, kinetic blasts. All for One was using dozens of quirks simultaneously, creating a storm of destruction aimed at overwhelming Izuku through sheer volume. Izuku couldn't dodge. His classmates were behind him. If he moved, they died, so he didn't move. He planted his Bisento and spread his arms wide, creating a barrier of compressed air through controlled vibrations. The attacks hit the barrier and dispersed, their force redirected harmlessly into the warehouse walls. "Clever," All for One said. "But how long can you maintain that defense? Your quirk is powerful, but it consumes stamina. You're already exhausted from fighting muscular and clearing out my forces. Eventually, you'll falter, and when you do, I won't." Izuku's voice was steady, "because I'm not fighting alone." Behind him, Bakugo stood up. His chains were broken, his hands were free. "Took you long enough to bust me out," Bakugo snarled, palms crackling with explosions. "Now let me return the favor." Todoroki emerged from the shadows where he'd been hidden. Ice and fire mixed around his hands. "The heroes are on their way. All Might detected the earthquake and is coming. We just need to hold out." "We don't need to hold out," Bakugo roared. "We need to beat this bastard." He launched himself at All for One, explosions propelling him forward. Todoroki created an ice path, sliding along it at high speed while firing flames, and Izuku charged center, his Bisento raised high. 3 of UA's strongest students versus the greatest villain in history. All for One laughed. "Now this is what I wanted to see, the next generation's power. Show me everything." The warehouse became a battlefield. Bakugo's explosions lit up the darkness, each blast calculated to overwhelm All for One's defenses. Todoroki's ice created obstacles and barriers, controlling the terrain while his fire forced the villain to constantly adapt. And Izuku was the center of it all, his Bisento singing through the air with devastating precision. But All for One was on another level. Every quirk the students threw at him, he countered with a stolen ability. Fire? He absorbed it. Ice? He melted it. Explosions? He redirected them. And his regeneration meant even direct hits barely slowed him down. "You're strong," All for One called out, dodging a combined attack. "But strength alone won't save the world. You need experience, strategy, the wisdom to know when to retreat." "We don't retreat," Bakugo roared. "Then you'll die." All for One's hand shot forward, launching an air cannon directly at Bakugo's chest. The impact would have killed him. But Izuku was faster. He appeared between them, his massive frame absorbing the blow. The air cannon slammed into his chest, creating a crater in his reinforced muscles. Blood sprayed. Ribs cracked. But Izuku didn't fall. He grabbed All for One's extended arm. My turn, he said quietly. Then he channeled every ounce of power he had left into a single technique, Kabutowari. He drove his forehead into All for One's mask. At the moment of impact, he released a concentrated pulse of vibrational energy directly into the villain's skull. The mask shattered. The face beneath, scarred and eyeless, contorted in pain. The vibrations traveled through All for One's brain, disrupting neural pathways and scrambling thoughts. All for One stumbled backward, his quirks faltering. You. How dare you? Izuku raised his Bicento, preparing for the finishing blow. Then the warehouse wall exploded inward. All Might arrived. His muscular form was glorious in the smoke and debris, his smile absent for once. He took in the scene, the broken villains, the injured students, All for One stumbling with a shattered mask. You've done well, young heroes, All Might said. Now let me finish this. No, Izuku stepped forward. He's mine. He hurt my family, and that's exactly why you shouldn't finish it. All Might's voice was firm. You're angry, emotional. If you kill him like this, you'll regret it for the rest of your life. Trust me, I know. Izuku hesitated. Every fiber of his being wanted to crush All for One to ensure this villain could never hurt anyone again. But All Might's words cut through the rage. Heroes don't kill. Damn it, Izuku whispered. He lowered his Bicento. Fine, he's yours. All for One laughed weakly. How touching. The student defers to the master, but you're both wrong. This isn't over. I've seen enough. I know your limits now, Midoriya, and I know how to break you. A portal opened beneath All for One. Kurogiri had recovered enough to rescue his master. The ancient villain fell through, disappearing before All Might could reach him. Silence fell over the destroyed warehouse. Then Bakugo punched Izuku in the arm as much as he could reach. You stupid bastard, Bakugo said, his voice rough. Taking a hit for me? Since when did you start playing hero? Since always, Izuku replied. Your family. I protect family. I'm not your family. But Bakugo's voice cracked. Despite his words, he didn't move away. The police arrived, paramedics swarmed the area. The remaining villains were arrested. The students were checked for injuries. Izuku's ribs were cracked. Bakugo had multiple burns. Todoroki was exhausted from quirk overuse, but they were alive. All of them. Later that night, after the medical treatments and police interviews and worried parents, Izuku sat alone in his hospital room. His chest was wrapped in bandages. His hands were in splints to help the bones heal properly. A knock at the door. Come in. All Might entered, deflated form, looking tired and worried. He pulled up a chair. You fought well today, young Midoriya. Perhaps too well. What do you mean? All for One escaped. He knows your abilities now, your techniques, your limits. He'll adapt, and next time, he'll come prepared. All Might leaned forward. You're the strongest student UA has ever seen, but that also makes you the biggest target. Every villain in Japan now knows your name. Good, Izuku said flatly. Let them come. I'll beat every single one. That's not... All Might paused, choosing his words carefully. Power without wisdom is dangerous, young man. You have incredible strength, but you also have incredible anger. I saw it in your eyes when you fought All for One. You wanted to kill him. He deserved it. Maybe, but that's not for us to decide. Heroes save people. We don't execute villains, no matter how evil they are. The moment you cross that line, I know! Izuku's voice rose. I know heroes don't kill. I've heard it my entire life. But what about when killing is the only option? What about when the villain is so dangerous that letting them live means more innocent people will die? What then? All Might was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke quietly. Then we carry that burden. We find another way. Because the moment we decide some people deserve to die, we become something other than heroes. We become judges, executioners. And society shouldn't give that power to anyone. Even if it costs lives, even then. All Might stood. I know it's not fair. I know it's frustrating. But that's the price of being the symbol of peace. We bear the responsibility so others don't have to. He left. Izuku sat alone in the darkness, staring at his bandaged hands. The symbol of peace. Was that really what he wanted to be? A symbol? Something for people to worship while he carried impossible burdens alone? Or did he want to be something else? Something stronger? Something that villains feared so deeply they never dared to act? He didn't have an answer yet. But he would find one. Soon. The weeks following the training camp incident were chaotic. The media exploded with coverage. UA students fought the League of Villains. Izuku Midoriya, the sports festival champion, single-handedly defeated dozens of villains. All Might faced All for One again. The symbol of peace was declining. That last part was what hurt most. All Might's power was fading. His time as the #1 hero was running out, and everyone could see it. Izuku watched the news broadcasts in the common room, his classmates gathered around him. They'd been given a week off to recover, but the psychological toll was heavy. Uraraka had nightmares about being held hostage. Jiro jumped at sudden noises. Even Bakugo, proud, aggressive Bakugo, was quieter than usual. "It's not fair," Kaminari said quietly. "All Might's been the symbol of peace for decades. He can't just fade away." "Everyone fades eventually," Tokoyami replied, his tone somber. "Even symbols." "Then who takes his place?" Kirishima asked. He looked at Izuku. "I mean, you're the strongest, right? Could you become the next symbol of peace?" All eyes turned to Izuku. He sat in his reinforced chair, staring at the television screen showing All Might's most recent battle footage. The #1 hero was slower than before, weaker. The power that once let him defeat villains with a single punch now barely managed to keep him competitive. "I don't know," Izuku said finally. "I don't know if I want to be a symbol. Symbols are things people worship. They're not real. They're ideas given form. And ideas can't feel, can't hurt, can't fail. But you're real," Uraraka said softly. "You're not just an idea. You're Izuku, our classmate, our friend." "Family," Izuku corrected. "We're family now, after everything we've been through." The word hung in the air, then slowly the others nodded. They'd faced death together, been captured, rescued, fought side by side. That created bonds deeper than friendship. "Then what do we do?" Todoroki asked. "All Might is fading. Villains are getting bolder. The League of Villains knows where UA is. How do we protect ourselves?" "We get stronger," Bakugo snarled, finally speaking up. "All of us, not just Midoriya. If we're going to be heroes, we need power. Real power, enough that villains think twice before attacking us." "Bakugo's right," Ida agreed, adjusting his glasses. "The provisional license exam is coming up. If we pass, we'll be able to legally engage villains. We need to train harder than ever." "Then let's do it," Izuku said, standing. His massive frame filled the room. "Starting tomorrow, we train together. No more individual practice. We work as a team. We cover each other's weaknesses. We become strong enough that nobody, not the League of Villains, not All for One, not any villain in Japan, can touch our family." "Hell yeah!" Kirishima pumped his fist. "That's so manly!" "I'm in," Todoroki said. Obviously, Bakugo muttered. One by one, the class agreed. Class 1A would train together. They would become strong together. And when the next attack came, because everyone knew there would be a next attack, they'd be ready. The provisional license exam was brutal. Over 1,000 hero students from across Japan gathered at a massive testing facility. The first phase was elimination. Each student had 3 targets on their body. If all 3 were hit, they failed. The last 100 students to keep at least 1 target would advance. Izuku stood with his classmates at the starting line, his Bisento strapped to his back. Around them, students from other schools were eyeing UA's group with a mixture of respect and intimidation. "That's him," someone whispered. "Tremor, the one who fought the League of Villains. I heard he killed over 50 villains with 1 punch. My cousin's a pro hero. He said the Hero Commission is scared of how powerful that kid is." Izuku ignored the whispers. He was focused on the exam. He needed this license. Needed the legal authority to protect his family without restrictions. The starting buzzer rang. Chaos erupted immediately. Students from other schools had apparently coordinated. They were all targeting UA students first, trying to eliminate the strongest school before turning on each other. Dozens of projectiles flew toward Class 1A's group. Rubber balls, foam darts, beanbag rounds, all non-lethal but still capable of hitting targets. Izuku moved. He spun his Bisento in a defensive pattern, creating a barrier of vibrating air that knocked aside every projectile. Behind him, his classmates took cover. "Stick together," Izuku called out. "They're trying to separate us." But it was too late. A student with a quirk that created portals, not Kurogiri, someone different, was splitting up Class 1A, teleporting individuals to different areas of the facility. Izuku found himself alone in a ruined cityscape section. Abandoned buildings loomed on all sides, and surrounding him were at least 30 students from various schools, all coordinating their attacks. "Take him down," someone shouted. He can't fight all of us. They were wrong. Izuku planted his Bisento and spread his arms. Shima Yurashi. He tilted the entire city section. Gravity shifted. Buildings leaned at impossible angles. The ground became a 45-degree slope. Students lost their footing, tumbling down the newly created incline. Their coordinated attack dissolved into chaos as everyone scrambled for handholds. Izuku walked up the tilted surface as if it were flat, his powerful legs compensating automatically. He picked off students one by one, hitting their targets with precise taps of his Bisento. They weren't worth his full power. Just quick, efficient eliminations. Within 5 minutes, all 30 students were out. Izuku released his grip on the air. The city section settled back to normal with a groan of stressed concrete. He continued forward, searching for his classmates. He found Bakugo and Kirishima fighting back-to-back against a group from Shiketsu High. Explosions and hardening made a good combination. Bakugo attacked while Kirishima defended. But they were outnumbered. Izuku arrived like a meteor. His Bisento swept through the enemy group, hitting targets faster than they could react. Within seconds, half the opposing team was eliminated. "Took you long enough," Bakugo snarled. "You're welcome," Izuku replied. "It's where are the others?" "Todoroki's holding the east section, Ida's got the north, everyone else scattered." "Then let's regroup." Izuku looked at the remaining Shiketsu students. "You all should probably run." They ran. The first phase ended. Class 1A had 11 students advance. Izuku, Bakugo, Todoroki, Ida, Uraraka, Kirishima, Kaminari, Ashido, Yaoyorozu, Jiro, and Tokoyami. The highest number from any single school. The second phase was rescue simulation. Students had to save mock civilians from various disaster scenarios while being evaluated by professional heroes. This was where Izuku's training paid off. His quirk wasn't just destructive, it was versatile. He used controlled vibrations to break through collapsed structures without causing further damage. He tilted unstable buildings to prevent them from falling on civilians. He created paths through rubble and debris with precise Gekishin strikes. The evaluators watched in awe. "He's not just strong," one hero muttered. "He's got incredible control. Look at how he's adjusting the frequency of his vibrations to match different materials. His situational awareness is beyond his years. He's tracking multiple civilians simultaneously while maintaining structural stability of damaged buildings. If he wasn't already a student, I'd recruit him for my agency right now." The exam ended. Results were posted immediately. Izuku Midoriya, pass. Score 98-100. He'd lost 2 points for being too focused on efficiency over civilian comfort. Apparently, some of the mock victims complained about being jostled during the rescue. Izuku didn't care. He had his license. Now he could legally engage villains. Protect his family without restrictions. Be the hero he was meant to be. That night, Class 1A celebrated. They'd all passed, every single one of them. It was unprecedented for an entire class to succeed on their first attempt. But the celebration was cut short by a news broadcast. All Might's power had run out during a mission. He'd been forced to reveal his weakened form to the public. The symbol of peace, the invincible hero everyone believed in, was shown to be mortal, vulnerable, declining. The world was shocked. Stock markets crashed. Crime rates spiked overnight. Villains who'd been too scared to act during All Might's reign suddenly grew bold. Hero society was crumbling, and everyone was asking the same question: who would fill the void left by All Might's decline? Izuku sat in the common room long after his classmates had gone to bed, watching the news coverage of All Might's revelation. The symbol of peace looked so small on screen, so human, so fragile. "It's time, isn't it?" Izuku turned. All Might stood in the doorway, deflated form, looking even more skeletal than usual. "Time for what?" "For someone else to carry the torch." All Might walked over and sat beside Izuku. The height difference was less pronounced now that All Might had lost his muscular form permanently. "I can't be the symbol anymore. My time is over, but the world still needs a symbol. Someone strong enough to make villains think twice. Someone people can believe in." "You want me to be that symbol. I want you to be whatever you choose to be, but yes, I think you have the potential to become something even greater than I was. Not just strong, but wise. Not just powerful, but kind. A hero who protects not through fear, but through overwhelming presence." Izuku was quiet for a long time, then he spoke. "What if I don't want to be a symbol? What if I just want to protect the people I care about? Then you protect them. And in doing so, you protect everyone else. Because that's what heroes do. We extend our family to include the entire world. All Might smiled weakly. You're already doing it, young Midoriya. Every time you fight, you're protecting more than just your classmates. You're protecting the idea that heroes will always stand against evil. That's what makes you special. I'm not special, I just have a strong quirk. No, your quirk is just power. What makes you special is your heart. The way you call your classmates family. The way you refuse to let anyone hurt them. The way you stand between danger and innocence without hesitation. That's not power, Midoriya. That's heroism. All Might stood and placed a hand on Izuku's shoulder. The world is going to be scary for a while. Villains will test the boundaries. Good people will suffer. But if you're there, if you stand tall and show everyone that heroes haven't given up, then maybe, just maybe, we can keep society from collapsing entirely. He walked toward the door, then paused. Oh, and Midoriya, when you do become the symbol of peace, and you will, try to smile more. People need to see that their hero isn't suffering, that he's confident, that everything will be okay. I'll try. Good. All Might's smile was genuine. Now get some rest. Tomorrow, the real work begins. He left. Izuku sat alone in the darkness, thinking about symbols and power and responsibility. The real work begins. All Might was right. With his retirement, the world had become more dangerous. Villains were emboldened. Citizens were scared. Heroes were overwhelmed. And in the shadows, the League of Villains was planning something big. 3 months passed. Izuku and his classmates threw themselves into training with renewed intensity. They knew the peace wouldn't last. The League of Villains was out there, planning, preparing. All for One was recovering from his injuries. Shigaraki was gathering more followers. A storm was coming, and they needed to be ready. Izuku trained differently now. He wasn't just developing new techniques, he was refining his existing ones to perfection. His Gikishin became more precise, capable of targeting specific points without collateral damage. His Shima Yurashi could now affect areas as small as a single room or as large as a city block. His Bisento techniques evolved, each swing calculated for maximum efficiency, but he also trained his endurance. The fight with All for One had shown him his limits. If he couldn't sustain his power for extended periods, he'd be vulnerable in long battles. So, he ran. Lifted weights. Practiced his techniques for hours until his hands bled and his muscles screamed. He pushed past exhaustion, past pain, past every limit his body tried to impose. Because next time he faced All for One, he wouldn't just fight him, he'd end him. The other students noticed the change. Izuku had always been intense, but now he was driven by something darker, a determination that bordered on obsession. You need to slow down, Uraraka said one day, finding him alone in training ground Gamma at 3 in the morning. You're gonna hurt yourself. I'm fine. No, you're not. She walked closer, her expression concerned. You barely sleep. You skip meals. All you do is train. This isn't healthy, Midoriya. I need to be stronger. You're already the strongest. It's not enough. Izuku's shout echoed across the training ground. His hands were shaking. From exhaustion or emotion, he couldn't tell. All for One is out there. The League is planning something. All Might can't protect everyone anymore. If I'm not strong enough, if I fail, people will die. My family will die. I can't let that happen. Then let us help you. Uraraka stepped forward, placing a hand on his arm. You keep saying we're family, but you're trying to carry everything alone. That's not how families work. We're supposed to support each other, protect each other. You can't save everyone by yourself. Watch me. He pulled away and returned to his training. Uraraka stood there for a moment, then walked away sadly. Bakugo confronted him the next day. You're being an idiot, Bakugo said bluntly during lunch. Not now, Bakugo. Yes, now. Bakugo slammed his hands on the table, palms sparking with small explosions. You think you're the only one who wants to get stronger? You think the rest of us are just sitting around waiting for you to save us? We're training too. We're pushing ourselves. But we're also smart enough to know when to rest. I don't need rest. I need, what, to collapse from exhaustion? To injure yourself so badly you can't fight when it actually matters? Bakugo's voice dropped, becoming uncharacteristically serious. Listen, you bastard. I hate admitting this, but you saved my life. At the training camp, in that warehouse. You put yourself between me and danger without hesitation, so I'm returning the favor. I'm telling you to stop being stupid before you destroy yourself." Izuku stared at him. Bakugo, proud, aggressive, stubborn Bakugo, was showing genuine concern. Izuku's voice was quiet. "I'm scared, Bakugo. For the first time in my life, I'm actually scared. Not of villains, not of fighting. I'm scared that I'm not enough, that despite all my power, I'll fail when it matters most." "Then get over it." Bakugo sat down, his expression hard. "Fear is null, every hero feels it. But you can't let it control you. Use it. Let it make you sharp, focused. But don't let it consume you, or you'll burn out before you ever get the chance to be great." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Izuku nodded slowly. "You're right. I've been pushing too hard. Obviously. You look like shit. Thanks for your concern. Whatever. Just don't die before I get the chance to surpass you." It was as close to friendship as they'd ever get, but it was enough. That night, Izuku slept for the first time in 3 days. When he woke, his body felt lighter, his mind clearer. He'd been so focused on becoming stronger that he'd forgotten why he wanted strength in the first place. To protect his family. And you couldn't protect anyone if you destroyed yourself first. The storm finally broke on a cold December morning. Every student's phone buzzed simultaneously. Emergency alert. All heroes report to designated stations. Massive villain attack in progress. Multiple locations across Japan, the League of Villains had made their move. Class 1A rushed to the common room where Aizawa was already waiting. His expression was grim. "Listen up. The League of Villains is launching coordinated attacks across the country. They're targeting infrastructure, hero agencies, and civilian centers. Every available hero has been mobilized. Normally, students wouldn't be involved, but..." He paused, looking directly at Izuku. "The Hero Commission specifically requested certain high-level students to assist." "We're going to war," Todoroki said quietly. "Essentially, yes. The League's goal appears to be overwhelming Hero Society through sheer volume of attacks. They want to prove that without All Might, we're defenseless." Aizawa's scarf twitched. "You'll be assigned to teams with professional heroes. Follow their orders, stay alive, and if you encounter All for One, we run," Ida finished. "We're not equipped to fight someone that powerful." "No," Izuku stood. "If I encounter All for One, I fight. That's what I've been training for." "Midoriya," Aizawa started. "I'm the only one who can match him. You know that. The Hero Commission knows that. That's why they requested me specifically." Izuku's voice was firm. "All Might can't fight anymore. Endeavor isn't strong enough. The other pros will fall. So it has to be me." The room was silent. Everyone knew he was right. Izuku was the strongest fighter UA had. Possibly the strongest in all of Japan now that All Might had retired. "Then we're going with you," Bakugo declared. "Me, Todoroki, Ida. The 4 strongest from the sports festival. If you're fighting All for One, you're not doing it alone." Bakugo, "Don't argue. You said we're family. Families fight together." Bakugo's palms sparked. "Besides, you're not the only one who wants payback. That bastard kidnapped me, hurt our classmates, tried to destroy everything All Might built. I'm going to blast him to pieces." Todoroki stepped forward. "I agree. My father may be the number 2 hero, but even he can't defeat All for One alone. If we coordinate our attacks with yours, we might have a chance." "And I'll provide support," Ida added. "My speed can evacuate civilians and deliver messages between heroes. I can be useful." Izuku looked at his 3 closest allies, his family. They were willing to risk their lives to fight beside him. "All right," he said finally. "We go together, but you follow my lead. If I say run, you run. Understood?" "Like hell," Bakugo started. "Understood?" Izuku's voice carried power. Not his quirk, but pure authoritative presence. Bakugo grumbled but nodded. Todoroki and Ida agreed immediately. Aizawa sighed. "You're all going to give me gray hair. Fine. But you're taking communication devices and emergency beacons. If the situation becomes untenable, you signal for backup. I don't care how strong you think you are. Nobody fights alone." They geared up. Izuku strapped his Bicento to his back. Bakugo loaded his gauntlets with maximum explosive capacity. Todoroki checked his temperature regulators. Ida's engines were tuned to peak performance. As they boarded the transport to the battlefield, Uraraka grabbed Izuku's hand. "Come back safe," she said quietly. "All of you." "We will." Izuku squeezed her hand gently. "I promise." The transport lifted off, carrying them toward what would be the largest battle in modern hero history. The final war had begun. The battlefield was apocalyptic. Downtown Tokyo had become a war zone. Buildings were collapsing, fires raged. Civilians fled in panic while heroes tried to maintain order. And at the center of the chaos stood the League of Villains. Shigaraki Tomura had evolved. His body had been modified, enhanced with additional quirks stolen by All for One. He moved faster, hit harder, and his decay quirk now spread in waves that disintegrated everything they touched. Dozens of pro-heroes engaged him, but they were falling. Fast, Izuku's team arrived on scene and immediately split up according to plan. Ida evacuated civilians from the danger zone using his incredible speed to clear entire city blocks in minutes. Todoroki created ice barriers to contain Shigaraki's decay waves, while his fire prevented the villain from creating optimal conditions for his quirk. Bakugo went straight for Shigaraki, explosions lighting up the battlefield. "Remember me, you hand-faced bastard. I'm the guy you kidnapped. Time for payback." His explosions were powerful enough to send Shigaraki skidding backward, but the villain's enhanced durability meant the damage was minimal. "The little bomb boy," Shigaraki giggled, scratching at his neck. "You've gotten stronger, but not strong enough." He lunged forward, all 5 fingers extended. If he touched Bakugo, the decay would kill him instantly. But Izuku was there. His Bisento intercepted Shigaraki's hand, the blade coated in vibrational energy that prevented direct contact. The clash created a shockwave that shattered nearby windows. "You want to fight someone strong?" Izuku said calmly. "Fight me." Shigaraki's eyes, now red and inhuman, focused on Izuku. "Tremor, the boy who killed Muscular, who destroyed the Nomu. Master says you're the greatest threat to our plans. Your master is right to fear me." "Fear?" Shigaraki laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Master doesn't fear anything. He's immortal, all-powerful, and soon he's going to take over my body completely. Then we'll have the perfect combination. His quirks, my hatred, and the power to decay the entire world." Izuku's eyes narrowed. "He's going to possess you?" "Not possess. Merge. Become one. All for One and Shigaraki Tomura, united in a single perfect being." Shigaraki's decay spread across the ground in visible waves. "And when that happens, even you won't be able to stop us." The decay reached Izuku. But before it could touch him, he stomped once. Gekishin. The shockwave traveled through the ground, disrupting the molecular bonds of Shigaraki's decay wave. The disintegration effect scattered harmlessly. "Your decay is just a quirk," Izuku said. "And quirks follow rules. Rules can be broken." He charged. His Bisento swung in a devastating arc, each strike forcing Shigaraki to dodge or defend. The villain was fast, faster than should be possible, but Izuku's attacks were relentless. Around them, other pro-heroes were engaging the rest of the league. Dabi fought Endeavor in a battle of flames. Toga was engaged by several underground heroes. Twice created clones that overwhelmed the hero teams with sheer numbers, but the real threat wasn't the league. The sky darkened. A presence descended that made every hero's instincts scream danger. All for One arrived. He floated above the battlefield, his body fully regenerated. The mask was gone, revealing his scarred, eyeless face. Around him, the air itself seemed to warp from the pressure of his power. "Midoriya!" His voice boomed across the battlefield. "I've been waiting for this. Our rematch. The boy who can shake the world versus the man who stole it." Every hero stopped fighting. They stared at the ancient villain in terror. This was the demon who'd nearly killed All Might, the villain who'd ruled Japan's underworld for decades, the living embodiment of evil, and he was focusing all his attention on a 15-year-old boy. "All heroes fall back," Endeavor shouted. "Clear the area. This isn't a fight we can interfere in." "No," Izuku said calmly, his Bisento resting on his shoulder. "You all keep fighting the league. All for One is mine." "You can't possibly," Endeavor started. "I can!" Izuku's shout was powerful enough to create a visible shockwave. "I'm Izuku Midoriya. I'm the boy who killed the Nomu, who defeated Muscular, who stood against the League of Villains alone and won. I'm the strongest hero student in history, and I will not let this villain destroy everything I love." His power erupted. White energy coated his entire body. The ground beneath his feet cracked and spiderwebbed for 100 feet in every direction. The air around him vibrated so intensely it became visible, a sphere of distorted space that screamed danger to every instinct. All for One smiled. "There it is, the power I've been waiting to see. Show me, boy, show me everything. He descended, landing 50 feet from Izuku. The impact created a crater. They stared at each other across the ruined street. The strongest student versus the greatest villain. Youth versus age, hope versus despair. Bakugo, Todoroki, Ida handle Shigaraki, Izuku said without breaking eye contact. Nobody interferes with this fight? Nobody. But, Todoroki started, nobody. Izuku's voice left no room for argument. His family stepped back reluctantly. They understood this wasn't just a fight, this was personal. All for One had attacked UA, kidnapped Bakugo, hurt his classmates, threatened everything he held dear. This was vengeance, righteous, necessary. Shall we begin? All for One asked, his voice almost cordial. Yeah. Izuku planted his bicento. Let's end this. Let's end this. They charged simultaneously. The impact of their first clash was apocalyptic. Izuku's Gekishin-coated fist met All for One's reinforced palm. The resulting shockwave leveled every building within 3 blocks. Windows shattered for a mile in every direction. The ground split open, like creating a massive fissure that swallowed cars and debris. They separated and charged again. All for One launched a barrage of air cannons. Izuku swung his bicento, each strike creating a Naginata Resetsu that intercepted and dispersed the attacks. They moved so fast they became blurs, superhuman speed, meeting impossible power. You're strong, All for One laughed, firing kinetic blasts from both hands. Stronger than any student should be. But I've been alive for over 100 years. I've stolen thousands of quirks. What chance does one boy with one quirk have against that? This chance! Izuku stomped once. Shima Yurashi! The entire battlefield tilted. Gravity shifted 45 degrees. Buildings leaned. Heroes and villains alike lost their footing. But Izuku and All for One remained grounded. Izuku through his quirk control, All for One through flight. Clever. All for One created multiple arms of hardened flesh. But insufficient. The arms attacked from every angle. Izuku blocked with his bicento, each impact creating shockwaves. But there were too many. One got through, slamming into his ribs with enough force to crack bone. Izuku coughed blood but didn't fall. He grabbed the offending arm and channeled Gekishin directly into it. The arm exploded. Flesh and blood sprayed. All for One screamed and regenerated, growing a new arm instantly. You can regenerate, Izuku noted, spitting blood. Good, that means I don't have to hold back. He dropped his bicento and pulled back both fists. White spheres formed, larger than ever before, glowing like miniature suns. The pressure was so intense that nearby heroes were forced to retreat further. Ikitusen! Twin Gekishin merged into a single colossal shockwave. The air shattered completely, visible cracks spreading through reality itself. The shockwave slammed into All for One like divine judgment. The villain was thrown backward. He crashed through buildings, through concrete, through steel and stone. His body carved a trench half a mile long before finally stopping, embedded in the remains of a skyscraper. Izuku didn't wait. He charged forward, his bicento retrieved and swinging. All for One barely dodged, the blade passing inches from his head and cutting the building in half. They clashed again and again. Each impact created earthquakes. Each shockwave leveled more buildings. The battlefield was being destroyed around them, transformed into an apocalyptic wasteland by their power. Why won't you fall? All for One roared, frustration creeping into his voice. He was using every quirk, every technique, every trick he'd accumulated over a century of villainy, and none of it was enough. Because I'm not fighting for myself, Izuku replied, his voice steady despite his exhaustion. I'm fighting for everyone you've hurt, everyone you've killed, every family you've destroyed. They all stand with me, and I will not fall. He swung his bicento in a complete circle. Kaiten Resetsu, a sphere of shockwaves erupted around him, attacking from every direction simultaneously. All for One couldn't dodge, there was nowhere to go. The attacks hit from all sides, tearing through his defenses, shattering his regenerated body, but still, he stood. Still, he fought. You're right, All for One said, his voice strangely calm despite his injuries. You are strong, stronger than I anticipated. Perhaps even strong enough to defeat me in this body. Then surrender. Never. But I don't need to defeat you myself. All for One looked past Izuku toward where Shigaraki was fighting. I just need to buy enough time. Izuku's eyes widened. What? A massive pulse of power erupted from Shigaraki's location. Everyone on the battlefield turned to look. Shigaraki was changing. His body was growing, mutating, transforming into something monstrous. All for One's consciousness was merging with him, creating a fusion of both villains. No, Izuku whispered. Yes! The voice came from both All for One and Shigaraki simultaneously. The perfect being, my mind, his hatred, and the power of dozens of quirks combined. This is what true villainy looks like. The fusion completed. What stood before them was no longer Shigaraki Tamura or All for One. It was something new, something terrible. A being with All for One's experience and stolen quirks, combined with Shigaraki's raw hatred and decay ability. Its body was massive, 10 feet tall, covered in muscle and armor. Its hands ended in claws that radiated decay. Its eyes burned with malevolent intelligence. I am Shigaraki, the fusion spoke, its voice layered and wrong. I am All for One. I am the end of hero society. I am your death. It moved, faster than anything that size should move. It appeared in front of Bakugo, claws extended. Todoroki tried to block with ice, but the decay spread through it instantly. Ida attempted a rescue, but the fusion's speed matched his own. Bakugo was going to die. No, Izuku roared. He covered the distance in a single bound, impossible distance, impossible speed, driven by pure desperate power. His body slammed into Bakugo, pushing him aside just as the fusion's claws descended. The claws hit Izuku instead. 5 fingers touched his chest. Decay spread, but it stopped. Izuku's vibrations disrupted the molecular bonds before they could destroy him completely. The decay spread across his skin but didn't reach deeper, creating horrible burns but not killing him. Interesting, Shigaraki All for One mused. Your vibrations counter my decay, but for how long? How long can you maintain that defense while also fighting? Izuku pushed himself up, blood dripping from his mouth. His chest was a ruin of burned flesh, but he was alive. As long as I need to. He raised his Bisento with shaking hands. You want to fight? Let's fight. You can barely stand, the fusion said. Look at you. Broken, bleeding, exhausted. This is what happens when children play hero. They die. I'm not a child. Izuku's shout created a visible shockwave. I'm a hero, and heroes don't give up. He charged. His Bisento swung with all his remaining strength. The fusion blocked with one hand, then punched with the other. The impact sent Izuku flying backward, crashing through the remains of a building. Midoriya! His classmates screamed. But Izuku stood up again, and again, and again. Each time he fell, he rose. Each time he was knocked down, he charged back. His body was breaking. His quirk was pushing past all safe limits, but he wouldn't stop. He couldn't stop. Because if he fell, everyone he loved would die. The fusion laughed. Admirable, futile, but admirable. You have heart, boy, but heart alone can't defeat me. Then I'll use more than heart. Izuku planted his Bisento in the ground, his hands pressed against the earth. I'll use everything. Power erupted from him. Not just his quirk, everything. His strength, his will, his determination, his love for his family. All of it channeled into a single technique. The ground began to shake. Not just the battlefield, the entire city. Tokyo itself trembled as Izuku drew on power he'd never accessed before. Power that went beyond Gekishin or Kaishin, or any technique he developed. This was his absolute limit, the maximum expression of his quirk. What are you doing? The fusion actually sounded concerned. Ending this. Izuku's voice was calm despite the incredible forces swirling around him. I'm going to hit you with everything I have, everything I am. And then you're going to die. Impossible. Even you can't. Watch me. Izuku stood. Both fists pulled back. The white spheres formed, but this time they were massive, building-sized, glowing with power that made the air itself catch fire from the heat. Cracks spread through reality around him, visible fractures in space that revealed something beyond. This was it. The technique he'd been developing. The ultimate expression of the tremor quirk, he named it Sekai o Yuragasu, world-shaking impact. He punched forward with both fists. Crack! Crack, crack. The sound of reality shattering echoed across all of Tokyo. The shockwave that erupted wasn't just powerful, it was apocalyptic. The entire city district was obliterated instantly. Buildings didn't collapse, they were erased, atomized by vibrations so intense they tore matter apart at the molecular level. The shockwave was visible from space. Satellites detected seismic activity equivalent to a magnitude 9 earthquake. The impact could be felt across all of Japan. And at the center of it all, Shigaraki All for One tried to defend. Used every quirk, every defense, every regeneration ability. It wasn't enough. The vibrations bypassed his defenses. They traveled through his body, shaking apart the fusion at a fundamental level. The stolen quirks began to fail, unable to maintain cohesion under the assault. Shigaraki's consciousness screamed. All for One's mind fractured, the fusion came apart, not just defeated, not just killed, completely annihilated. Every cell, every atom, every trace of existence vibrated into nothingness. There wasn't even dust remaining. Shigaraki, Tamura, and All for One were gone. Erased from reality, the shockwave finally dissipated. Silence fell over the battlefield, what was left of it. A crater 5 miles wide marked where the city district used to be, and at the center stood Izuku Midoriya. He swayed once, twice, then fell. His Basento clattered beside him, his eyes closed, unconsciousness took him. But before he fell completely, he smiled. He'd won. Izuku woke 3 weeks later. His body had been pushed beyond all limits. Every bone had stress fractures. His muscles had torn from overexertion. His quirk had damaged his own cells through overuse. Recovery Girl had said it was a miracle he survived at all, but he had survived. And he'd won. The news was already calling him the greatest hero of his generation. The boy who defeated All for One, who'd saved Tokyo, who'd proven that even without All Might, hero society could survive. He was a symbol now, whether he wanted to be or not. His hospital room was filled with flowers and cards, get well wishes from civilians he'd never met, thanks from heroes across Japan. Letters from children saying they wanted to be like him when they grew up. It was overwhelming. A knock at the door. Bakugo entered. No explosions, no yelling, just walked in and sat down. They sat in silence for several minutes. "You did it," Bakugo finally said. "You actually beat that bastard. We did it. All of us. If you, Todoroki, and Ida hadn't held off Shigaraki before the fusion, I wouldn't have had the strength to use Sekayo Yurigasu. Don't give me credit for your victory. You're the one who shook the world. Because you all held it steady," Bakugo snorted. "Since when did you become philosophical? Since I almost died and realized what matters most." "And what's that?" "Family." Izuku looked at Bakugo. "You, Todoroki, Uraraka, everyone in Class 1A. You're what matters, not power, not being a symbol, just protecting the people I care about. That's disgustingly sentimental." "Yeah, but it's true." More visitors came over the following days. Todoroki, who'd unlocked new abilities during the fight. Ida, who'd saved over 300 civilians. Uraraka, who cried when she saw Izuku was okay. The entire class, one by one, checking on their family. All Might came last. He sat in the chair, looking old and tired, but genuinely happy. "You did it, young Midoriya. You became what I always hoped you'd be, not a copy of me, but something greater. Your own kind of symbol. The hero who protects not through invincibility, but through sheer determination. I just did what needed to be done, and that's exactly what makes you a hero." All Might smiled. "The world is safer now because of you. Villains across Japan have surrendered, too scared to act, knowing you're out there. Crime rates have dropped to historic lows. You've given people hope. What about you? What will you do now?" "Me?" All Might chuckled. "I'll teach. Help train the next generation, Zach. Make sure there are more heroes like you, strong enough to protect, wise enough to lead. My time as a fighter is over, but my time as a teacher is just beginning." They talked for hours about heroism, about responsibility, about what it meant to carry the weight of the world. When All Might finally left, Izuku was alone with his thoughts. He'd won. Defeated the greatest villain in history. Saved Japan. Become a legend. But the cost had been high. His body was damaged, possibly permanently. He'd pushed his quirk to limits that might have lasting consequences. And he'd killed someone, even if that someone was All for One. Could he live with that? He looked at his bandaged hands. These hands had destroyed evil, protected innocence, saved lives. Yeah, he could live with that. 2 months later, Izuku stood on a hilltop overlooking Tokyo, or rather, New Tokyo, rebuilt from the ruins of the final battle. His classmates stood with him, all of them together again. The city lights sparkled below, peaceful, safe, protected. "Hard to believe it's been 2 months since the battle," Kirishima said. "Feels like yesterday." "Feels like a lifetime ago," Jiro countered. "Both are true," Todoroki said. "The battle changed everything. We're not the same people we were." "Damn right," Bakugo agreed. "We're stronger now, all of us." "Not just stronger," Ida added. "More united. We proved that working together, we can overcome any challenge." Izuku listened to his family talk, a smile on his face. They'd all grown. Bakugo had learned teamwork. Todoroki had accepted both sides of his quirk. Ida had become more flexible in his thinking. Uraraka had developed new techniques, everyone had evolved, and so had he. "What's next?" Uraraka asked, looking at Izuku. "You're basically a legend now, you could do anything. What do you want?" "I want to graduate," Izuku said simply. "Finish my education at UA, learn everything I can from the teachers, then become a professional hero. Not as a symbol, just as someone who protects people." "That's it?" Kaminari sounded disappointed. "No grand plans? No ambitions to be #1 hero? I don't need to be #1. I just need to be there when people need me. That's enough." They stood together as the sun set, painting the sky in brilliant colors. The new generation of heroes, forged in fire, ready for whatever came next. Bakugo spoke quietly, almost too quiet to hear. "You know we're going to face more villains, right? This wasn't the end. There will always be evil in the world." "I know," Izuku replied. "That's why we'll always be heroes." He looked at the sunset, his bicento resting on his shoulder, and laughed his signature laugh. Gura Gura! The world is ours to protect now, and Tokyo, safe, peaceful, rebuilt, seemed to echo his confidence. Citizens went about their lives without fear, children played in parks, families gathered for dinner. Life continued, because they knew. When danger came, when evil rose, there would be heroes to stop it. And at the head of those heroes stood Izuku Midoriya, the boy who could shake the world and the hero who'd saved it. His journey wasn't over, it was just beginning. There would be more battles, more challenges, more sacrifices, but he'd face them all with his family beside him, because that's what heroes did. They stood together, they protected the weak, they never gave up, and they smiled knowing that as long as they drew breath, evil would never win. Years later, historians would look back on this moment, this sunset, this group of students on a hilltop, as the birth of a new era. The age when symbols became people, and people became legends. The age of Izuku Midoriya, the strongest man in the world, the hero who shook reality itself and rebuilt it stronger than before. His story would be told for generations. Parents would tell their children about the boy with the power to destroy the world, who chose instead to protect it. Schools would teach his techniques. Heroes would study his strategies, but the truth was simpler than any legend. Izuku Midoriya was just a boy who loved his family.
The Chronos Legend roster. Huge respect to the legends fueling this journey. Your support is the engine behind everything we do. Whether you're on the front lines or reaching for the stars, you make this possible. Pro Heroes, the elite front line, stepping up and setting the pace for the whole community. Rathakit, Dylan the Proud, D.I., Fire05. Symbol of peace, the pillars of the community, the titans who keep our foundation solid and the hype alive. Yam, Christian Mullins, Bully Maguire Shadow, Amuri B, Kenneth Ponteris, Neostar Productions, Asael Cardenas, Shaquan Simmons, Thunder, Elijah Saunders, Peter Hamilton, Freddie Rose, Omega, Toxic Rune, Alexander Thompson, Remorsefuls, Black Vein, Joshua Hedrington, Aaron Abercrombie, Drift SKETR, Corey Tokars, Yan, Zero Hope 3656, Devin Black, Crow, Roberto Ramos de Cristina, Dasher Games, Ray von Crimson River, Dante Alistar, Adam Yonkers, Blood Saints, Donna Cafe, Zeph, Howie 60, Ignacio, Albert. Hope of the universe, the ultimate guardians, celestial tier supporters whose impact shines across the galaxy. Coldbane 4, The Maniac 563, Sean Brooks, Kashawn, Debbie Vo, Gvizzlms 21, LS Morningstar, Marl, Spintown, Ike Shoot X50, Greg Green, James, Kwon Yen Thompson, Juan, Zeno KJ. And that's how Izuku became the most terrifying hero in MHA history. If you enjoyed watching villains get absolutely demolished by earthquake fists, smash that like button. Subscribe for more overpowered what-ifs that make canon look boring. Drop a comment telling me which character should get the Whitebeard treatment next. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.